The land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional land of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we, as beneficiaries of the treaty, must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening. Rules for the council chambers. The municipality of Chatham-Kent supports open meetings that welcome debate of public policy issues in an atmosphere of inclusiveness, integrity, civility, fairness, and respect for differing points of view. Anyone conducting themselves in a way that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, interrupts or makes derogatory statements or hate speech, defamatory comments about councillors, staff, or speakers, or fellow members of the public may result in removal from the premises. This also applies to deputations. We ask that you do not approach members of council if they are seated in their council seats, and the public, unless invited, is not permitted to come into the gated horseshoe area. The use of posters, signage, and literature is also prohibited. Mr. Mayor, we have a full house, everyone in the room this evening. No one is participating virtually. And we have 3 disclosures of pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, for open session agenda items. The first one is 11A, Councillor Story, with regards to the application of consent and zoning bylaw amendments for New Scotland Farms Limited and James Earl Brackett at 11887 New Scotland Line. We also have 2 conflicts on item 17A, Together CK Core Grant Funding Recommendation, and that is Councillor Brock McGregor and Councillor McDonald.
Move on to planning.
Thank you, Mark-Anna. So the process to be followed for each application tonight will be as follows. 1, the clerk will announce each item and indicate if any submissions have been received. 2, the mayor will ask if there's anyone present besides the applicant or agent with an interest to speak to the item and to indicate so by raising their hand. 3, if anyone is present to speak to the item, administration will have a presentation. 4, interested individuals will address council at this podium. 5, the applicant may address council at this podium. 6, council may ask questions of each presenter and the applicant. 7, administration may comment based on any discussions occurred. And 8, council will decide what action it wishes to take with regards to each item. If there's no members of the public wishing to speak to an item, there will be no presentation by administration. Council's decisions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. If anyone made a submission or a deputation on an item, they'll receive a notice of council's decision. Others must request a notice of decision in writing to the municipal clerk. Thank you.
11A, application for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, New Scotland Farms Limited and James Earl Brackett, 1187 New Scotland Line and New Scotland Line, community of Howard, East Kent. We have 1 conflict of interest and no deputations were received this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor McDonald and Councillor Wright, can I get you to move this, please?
Yep, happy to move the recommendations.
I'll second it, thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. And the last planning application is 11B, applications for official plan amendment, OPA number 85, and zoning bylaw amendment 1797418 Ontario Limited, care of York Developments London Inc., 770 St. Clair Street, Community of Chatham, City, North Kent. We have no conflict of interest and no public deputations were received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, is the applicant or agent present? Yes. Would you like to make a presentation, please?
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Lauren Suley, and I am a planner with Civic Planning and Design. And we're here tonight representing our client, York Developments, Inc., who are the owner and developer of the property at 770 St. Clair Street. Joining me tonight is also Michael Davis, one of our partners at Civic. And we're really pleased to be here tonight and to be meeting this milestone with the project. In addition to the application materials, you would have also received some additional information that was circulated to council. I'm not going to speak to that information tonight, but I just did want to point out that that is a resource that you can refer to if needed. I did, however, want to just introduce York Developments to everyone tonight. They are the developer of this project. They're a residential and commercial developer out of London, Ontario. And they are one of the largest and most active developers kind of in the southwestern region and have a very active pipeline of projects on an ongoing basis. These projects include apartments, condominiums, mixed-use office, and big box retail. They also manage kind of a full spectrum of the development projects, so all the way from acquisition to property management. They are involved and they're actively working through projects at all of those stages. So just wanted to clarify that York Developments is not affiliated with York One Demolition. I know the names are very similar, but we just wanted to make that clarification tonight, as those companies do have very similar names. So York is, as I said, the owner and developer at 770 St. Clair. They are also the owner and the developer of the adjacent properties around that parcel. So the Galaxy Cinemas, the Tim Hortons, the Burger King, excuse me, the Popeyes, and the Michaels. So they kind of own all of those properties. And this vacant parcel was originally intended for a home improvement center, store. Over time, that market demand hasn't really materialized. And York is kind of seeing a shift in demand for what this property could be used for. So as you may have seen across Ontario, there is quite a shift in these big box retail centers, and this new attractiveness to include high density residential in these areas and kind of creating these complete communities. And so York has seen an opportunity on this site with the existing servicing as well as the services and the amenities that already exist in the area. It is a really kind of logical location, they find, for high-density residential development. So to conclude, I want to also thank staff for all their work on this project. We are in full agreement with their recommendation and the amendments that are being recommended for approval tonight. So we are available for any questions if you have them. Thanks.
Councillor Allen and Councillor B. McGregor, can I get, put this on the floor and then we'll open up for questions.
Happy to do that. So seconded.
Okay. Councillor Story, you had a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation and the additional information. I think generally speaking, I support the proposal, and I'm sure the surrounding businesses will, be thrilled to have more potential customers in the area. If I'm reading the report correctly, it appears there is currently sewer capacity for only one of the 4 towers proposed. I know in the past this was a concern when it was for minor uses like big box stores. Residential uses will obviously have a much stronger demand. So looking ahead, in terms of the sanitary sewer issue, were there any peer reviews done on the report about what kind of needs we're going to look at moving forward? An engineering report not hired by the developer, just for an independent peer review of that assessment? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Yes, Councillor, part of the application submission, the municipality required the applicant to also submit a preliminary servicing brief that analyzed the infrastructure along St. Clair Street and if it's sufficient for accommodating the full development. So a summary of the report was that it did identify some surfacing constraints in terms of sanitary capacity, and that's reflected in the recommendation before council. So the zoning bylaw amendment is proposing that the lands be rezoned to a holding zone, and that holding zone is specific to the sanitary capacity sort of constraints in the area. So the current capacity can accommodate one of the buildings, one of 4, for a specific amount of dwelling units, and then beyond that, servicing upgrades would be required. And the holding's in place now until that happens. When that happens, then the holding symbol can then be applied to be removed, and further development can proceed.
Thank you for that. So in the interim, while it's under the H symbol, will any other development be permitted there? Let's say another big box store, appreciating that that is not as likely a retail use as it might have been in the past. Would they have any other options of other locations in Chatham to go to, or is this now going to take that real estate out of commission for any other use? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so the current zoning in the subject property limits the uses to a home improvement store. That's the only use that's permitted to date. The application is to add an apartment dwelling as an additional permitted use, so only those two uses would be permitted after these applications if they're so approved. But the intent here is to redevelop the property with the residential development being proposed through the applications. So it's anticipated that, you know, the first building would go up, and then there would be eventual improvements to the infrastructure in St. Clair, and then the full development would proceed from there.
Okay, that makes sense. Last question. So in that case, who is doing those improvements? Is that the taxpayer? Is that the developer? Is that, who will be responsible for those improvements when those are ready to go? And do we have any idea when that would happen? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there's no expectation in terms of servicing improvements associated with this application. It's understood that improvements are necessary. I think the expectation would probably be that you know, further development in the power center would trigger additional improvements in not only the sanitary capacity, but other infrastructure improvements as well, maybe even traffic related. So as growth continues, I think the expectation is that the improvements will be made, but there's not to my understanding that there's no determination of when improvements will be made for this project.
Sorry, and who's responsible for paying for those improvements? Thank you.
It hasn't been identified through this application process. I think that that's something that's outside of this planning process specifically, so I can't answer that. But I think the expectation is that the improvements would be made as development occurs, and the need is there for new development.
Okay, well, I mean, that's certainly an outstanding question I think would be useful to know moving forward, since that's a pretty major expense. We don't want to stifle development. We also want to make sure that we're paying for it effectively. So I look forward to seeing that information when it's ready. Thank you.
Gord, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to add that one of the ways that growth pays for growth is through development charges. So when we talked about, when the talk was about a sewage pumping station, for example, that was in the PUC master plan and is part of development charges being part of the funding base for that. So that's where the growth in North Chatham will eventually, over time, pay for that sewage expansion part, for example. And in future, you know, the transportation or the mobility master plan and other future plans will update future development charge studies. So there is another, what I'm saying is there's another source of income for the improvements that need to be done other than existing taxpayers.
Councilor McGrail?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. My question has to do with the traffic study. I just have some questions that way. You know, there was 2 intersections that were pointed out within that traffic study, and it's noted. And one of them, St. Clair and Gregory. And I know, like, driving that now, it's pretty hectic down there. I am in support of this project for sure. I'm just concerned about the traffic and what comes of it. So with this, my question is, the municipality, you know, is this on the radar already? And hopefully in the future coming up, this is a project we already have thought about and are working towards to help alleviate the traffic on St. Clair? Anybody?
Thank you, Rank Caniff. I think it's, my response is similar to the question about infrastructure upgrades. I think it's To your point, I think it was identified that there are, constraints in the traffic flow and at certain intersections, and in the future that should be dealt with. I think the conclusion of the traffic impact study is that this development should proceed as proposed under existing conditions, and that it's satisfactory. That's the conclusion of the report.
Thank you. Maybe if I could just add to that, Edward Solo, General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services. We're just about to embark on our mobility master plan, and this will be one of the areas that we'll take a look at, given the issues that have been identified through the preliminary work that's been done by the traffic consultant for the development here. So we'll look at what's necessary and what sort of timing is required based on the build out and the interim conditions here at the site.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Sakatchi?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just really one quick comment. I just wanted to recognize the investors and this is probably one of the largest investments that I've seen in the municipality for this capacity, and I think it's a really welcome addition that somebody's seeing us as a municipality that is growing, and also with the reduction of farmland to see that these buildings are going up. I think that's something that we should really significantly look at as well, because we all know the challenges of the reduction of farmland. The fact that these units are going up, and it's going to address those aspects as well. And just really thank you to the investor for choosing Chatham-Kent. This is a huge investment, and this is one of the, like I said, one of the biggest ones we've seen, and look forward to seeing it being established.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0. We'll now move on to the deputations. Council, we received 16 deputations for open session agenda items this evening from deputations that were received for email only on item 15A, which is the RFP contract R25-305 Chatham-Kent Community Hub. We've received and forwarded to Council from Christine Hewlett, Jeffrey Carter, Liz Valley, Andrew Teal, and Rob Myers. On item 15B, the motion of Councillor Stories providing detailed financial reporting and transparency on ongoing life cycle and operating costs for the CK Hub, we received a deputation from Jane Wright. And on item 15C, the building and land acquisition for 92 Churchill Street in Chatham, we received from Shelley Eklund. Present this evening, we have 9 deputations, all with regards to item 15A, the RFP for contract R25-305, Chatham-Kent Community Hub. I'll remind all speakers that there is a maximum of 5 minutes, and the timer will be on the screen. We'll start with Caitlin Goulet from the Chatham BIA, and on deck is Larry Hutchins.
Okay, I have my notes on my phone. Good evening, Mayor Caniff and members of council. My name is Caitlin Goulet. I'm the Executive Director with the Historic Downtown Chatham BIA, and I'm here to show my support for the CK Community Hub. First and foremost, it supports local business. As more people come downtown to access the services and amenities the hub will offer, all of our businesses will benefit. It's an investment that will strengthen our local economy and build momentum in our core and create many job opportunities. Additionally, it revitalizes our downtown. Combining the museum, civic center, and library into an accessible and more attractive space is getting people excited. Not only will this make our community more viable to potential investors, but I've heard plenty of people say that they haven't used the library in years, and they're excited to see a new library that they're going to bring their kids down to. Another important point is the community hub is coming in under budget and doesn't require a tax increase. We know that renovating the current buildings would cost significantly more, and that the current civic center is outdated and inefficient, no longer meeting the needs of our community. A vibrant downtown invites individuals from outside of our community to stay and shop, provides employment opportunities for our community members, and creates incentive for people to invest in us, showing them we want to continue to grow. With that said, this project is obviously directly benefiting our downtown, but investing in our downtown is beneficial to our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Larry Hutchins. On deck is Lucinda Harp.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. I would like to take a few moments to review some of the accomplishments of this term of council. $5 million spent on the Tiny Cabin project. $6 million spent on the Highway 2 roundabout. $8.9 million on the Burke Drain. $18 million on 101 McNaughton Ave West. $33 million for gravel road conversion acceleration. $45 million proposed to divert Highway 3. Over $200 million proposed for the Recreation Master Plan. Over $1 billion proposed to be spent over the next 10 years on water, wastewater. Approximately $2.363 billion on the Asset Management Plan. This is a total of $3,678,900,000 represents the amount spent and proposed to be spent on 9 projects in this term of council. Tonight you debate if the council accepts the tender for the Chatham-Kent Community Hub project. At $52.8 million, it may seem like a smaller amount of money than council has proposed or spent on other projects. However, it is still a significant amount of money. The proposal highlights the ability to pay for this project without raising taxes. The problem is that it leads to debentures that impact the ability for future borrowing and drawing from the building life cycle reserve's future income, which impacts the asset management plan, and that money will eventually need to be replaced. The hub has been a divisive concept from the beginning. Is it worth going in further debt to fund a project that is leading to petitions to de-amalgamate Chatham-Kent? There is a less expensive option of doing minimal repairs to the current civic center and library while building up reserves for the eventual replacement of both when the time comes for that. The night to replace them is not tonight. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next speaker is Lucinda Harp. On deck is Lynn O'Brien.
Good evening, Mayor Caniff, council members and fellow residents. As a proud new resident of Chatham, I chose the boardwalk because I wanted to be right in the heart of it all, where I can walk to restaurants, galleries, and live shows, surrounded by breathtaking architecture and rich history that define our beautiful downtown. I didn't just move here, I embraced the community and all the potential it holds. With over 50 years of experience in interior design and large-scale revitalization projects, I joined the BIA because I believe downtown Chatham is ready for the great next chapter, and I want to help write it. We are standing at the threshold of transformation. The CK Hub and 100 King project isn't just about new buildings. It's a statement of who we are and where we're headed. A vibrant civic center, an expanded public library, and a dynamic museum, all coming together to reignite the heartbeat of Chatham-Kent's future. This project is built on a vision, creativity, and community spirit. It will become a magnet for learning, culture, and innovation, a gathering place that brings together residents, visitors, entrepreneurs, students, and civic leaders. And this is our opportunity to say, change is good. To embrace bold ideas, to step fearlessly into the future. The hub will be so much more than bricks and mortar. It will be a powerful connector, drawing people downtown, attracting new residents and businesses, and sparking fresh energy investment. This is how we grow smarter, stronger, and even more vibrant. This is how we revitalize the heart of our city. We're not just planning for today, we're building for tomorrow. We're laying a foundation that supports the dreams of future generations, a thoughtful investment that strengthens our community for decades to come. Yes, there will always be hesitation. Change can feel uncertain, but progress belongs to the brave. Let's not hold ourselves back by clinging to the past. Let's build something that reflects our ambition, our optimism, and our belief in what's possible. This is our moment to lead with courage, to create a downtown that pulses with life, opportunity, and inspiration, to move forward, not with fear, but with pride, hope, and unity. Because change is good, and together we can shape a downtown and a future, and we'll all be proud of. Be fearless into the future, together for tomorrow. Let's go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Lynn O'Brien. On deck is Marie Carter.
Mayor and members of council, thank you for the opportunity this evening to speak to you in strong support of building of the CK Hub in downtown Chatham. The project is prudent, fiscally responsible, and simply makes good sense. Much like choosing to build a new house rather than continually repairing an aging one, a new facility offers long-term efficiencies and savings. The energy performance, modern design, and reduced maintenance costs will deliver measurable benefits for at least a decade. The final tender also includes furnishings and the move of all three, the library, the museum, and the Civic Center. It is a fact that the estimated costs to renovate and retrofit the Civic Center, library, and museum far exceed the expense of building a new, consolidated facility under one roof. Beyond the financial logic, this project will have a meaningful impact on our local economy. Construction of the CK Hub will create and sustain local jobs for the next 2 years, an important boost to our skilled trades and suppliers in Chatham-Kent. As someone who firmly believes, buy in CK whenever and wherever possible, I view this as an investment in our people as much as in our infrastructure. Equally important, the CK Hub represents a partnership in the ongoing revitalization of our downtown. The ownership group behind 100 King, Jessica Myers, Rob Myers, Ron Neidham, and Don Tatro, along with Apollo, the Acamporas, have already demonstrated their commitment through substantial redevelopment and reinvestment in our community. Their efforts have transformed once empty buildings into vibrant spaces, contributing significantly to an expanded tax base and renewed community pride. One just needs to walk down Llewellyn Lane and one can see the colorful progress that signals momentum and optimism. Over the past decade alone, over $100 million in private investment has flowed into downtown Chatham. An incredible achievement that should inspire continued confidence in our shared vision. They say location is everything, and in this case, it truly is. The CK Hub will bring energy, excitement, and new opportunities to the heart of our community. It will attract small business, welcome new residents, and strengthen our downtown as a central, thriving hub of Chatham-Kent. We are a rare gem, and while there are always be challenges ahead of us, let us not hesitate or put up barriers to dim the promise before us tonight. Let's move forward together instead of apart and continue building a bright, prosperous future in Chatham-Kent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Marie Carter. Is Marie here? Okay, next speaker is Martin Fisher. On deck is Susan Simpson.
Good evening. If you have a copy of my deputation in front of you, it means that you've got a copy that wasn't prepared and it says deputization of. I don't expect to be made sheriff. My apologies. In any case, my name is Martin Fisher, and I am a constituent of Chatham-Kent, specifically Kent. I bring my concern to your attention in the interest of the municipality and in particular to the residents. To the council, this matter is personal to each and every one of us residents. I bring this to your attention so as to make it personal for you too. The Municipal Act of 2001, under the immunity clause at section 448 sub 1, no proceeding for damages or otherwise shall be commenced against a member of council for any act done in good faith in the performance or of a duty or authority under this act for any alleged neglect or default in the performance in good faith of the duty. There are several concerns regarding the costs of the hub project. One, do the latest cost projections include guarantees against the rising cost of construction materials until the project is complete? It seems foreseeable overruns are imminent. And B, true costs of the total project have not been made public or accounted for. The need for the project. No municipal-wide need for the project has been substantiated. In fact, this project may harm the rural areas of the municipality. The closure of local libraries and civic services being among these concerns. There is a general disapproval for the project from the constituents, at least in my areas. Considering reasonable actions, it would be wise to step back from furtherance on this project until all costs have been considered and accounted for, and overruns have been eliminated from consideration. It would also be wise to step back from furtherance of this project until all implications regarding services to rural areas have been considered and guarantees made that services to rural areas will not be negatively impacted. This must include considerations for property tax increases. Given the great implications of this project and the general disapproval of the project among the constituents of Chatham-Kent, in particular, my areas, a referendum on this matter should be held. Consider the examples of other municipalities. The Northern Ontario township of Farquhar-Strickland is currently in financial trouble, facing a significant operating deficit that threatened to shut down municipal services. Respondents blame spending on major projects in recent years that the township couldn't afford, including the construction of a new municipal building. I want to talk a little about good faith. In law, good faith means honesty and fairness in conduct and purpose, a commitment to fulfilling obligations without deception, and an absence of intent to defraud or take unfair advantage. Key aspects of good faith include honest intent. It requires an honest belief or purpose behind the transaction or action. It also requires an absence of bad faith. It is the opposite of acting with intent to defraud, act maliciously, exploit loopholes, or ambiguities. The consequences of acting without good faith is that elected officials are not immune to civil liability when a lack of good faith can be demonstrated. I would advise our council, both joint and severally, to consider carefully the implications of voting the hub project forward until the issues have been fully considered and addressed. My personal charge to council, it is with my voice and vote that I charge the council, jointly and severally, to cease and desist with any approval of the hub project until all matters concerning costs, both present and foreseeable future construction, are known and made public in their entirety. The municipality-wide benefits of the municipality-wide desire for the hub project should be established and published first. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Next speaker is Susan Simpson. On deck is Rory Ring from the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, Mayor Caniff and Council. The proposed Chatham-Kent Hub is an exciting vision, a modern space for municipal offices, the library, and the museum. But vision alone is not enough. Without transparency and long-term financial planning, even the most attractive facility will struggle to serve the community effectively. We must plan for more than construction costs. Ongoing operating and life cycle expenses are critical to maintaining a safe, welcoming, and functional downtown. I encourage support for Councillor Story's motion calling for clear reporting of all costs associated with renovating the former Sears building, as well as ongoing operating and life cycle costs for the hub. The downtown currently faces challenges, including homelessness and issues related to addiction and mental health. Evidence shows that open drug use and drug-related behaviors impact public safety and discourage people from visiting, which in turn affects local businesses and the vibrancy of communities. Addressing these issues proactively through prevention, treatment, and recovery, along with well-managed on-site supportive housing, is essential. Not only does the hub need to attract the public initially, but it needs to be safe in order to sustain businesses and a thriving downtown long-term. We need only to look at the downtowns in other nearby Ontario cities, such as London, Windsor, or Sarnia, to see the impact of untreated addiction on their real retail outcomes. We have an opportunity with this hub to be a destination for visitors from communities outside of Chatham-Kent if we learn from their mistakes and do things differently. An updated report, including input from the public and business merchants, in addition to calls for service data generated by Chatham-Kent Police, Fire, and Emergency Medical Services, would inform both council and the public on the impacts of unmanaged addiction and mental health on business and public safety, so that they have a thorough and accurate understanding before moving forward. By combining financial transparency, long-term financial planning, and proactive management of downtown challenges, we can create a vibrant, safe, and sustainable downtown that works for everyone, residents, visitors, and businesses alike. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Rory Ring from the Chamber of Commerce, and on deck is Stuart McHugh.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks very much for taking this time this evening. And I'd just like to introduce Sarah Molnar, our board chair, one of 13 dedicated volunteers driven by the purpose to make a difference here in our community, just like yourselves. To set the stage, I think it's appropriate to reflect upon the Bank of Canada's third quarter business report that was issued out today. Some highlights from that. Business confidence remains subdued, with firms expecting growth to be soft. Investment, downbeat intentions, with many businesses prioritizing maintenance over expansion due to demand and trade uncertainty. Cost pressures. Businesses continue to expect cost increases from tariffs, but weak demand is limiting their ability to pass these costs on to customers. Inflation expectations, 1 year ahead, inflation expectations are slightly above late 2024 levels, but below earlier peaks. I think that gives us a pretty clear picture of the pressure that our business community is under in these current times. Delaying the awarding of the contract to construct the hub will only compound those challenges. We know in the small business community, and it is so impressive how many small businesses actually exist in Chatham-Kent, but cash is king. And once you start delaying that cash flow and continue the pressures on those cash flows, small business can be a casualty of the environment that we are currently in. So now is a decisive moment for council to award the Chatham-Kent Community Hub contract. The project's tender results are confirmed, the bid is under budget, contingencies are built in, and the municipality is financially prepared to proceed without any increase to property taxes. Delaying beyond the deadline would expose the municipality to immediate inflationary pressures, possible rising of interest rates due to increased risk, and potential renegotiations of risk in a volatile construction and material market. With construction scheduled to begin in December, the completed project for early 2018 timely approval ensures that residents quickly gain the benefits of consolidation, economic stimulus, and long-term operational savings. Waiting would not yield more certainty. It would generate higher costs, delayed returns, and lost local business opportunities. The time to act responsibly and decisively and in the best fiscal and community interest is now. We expect this project to really be a contributor to not only Chatham, but all of the communities throughout Chatham-Kent. Our supply chains are deep. We will access labor pools from all the communities within Chatham-Kent. Small businesses will take advantage of the opportunity and the focus of this council to prioritize localized procurement. Those synergies and then private sector investments combined with the partnerships of the expenditures by the municipality will create approximately 2.78 times the value of that investment. So when you look at the economic multiplier, this project can contribute to over $150 million in economic stimulus. That is significant. And we do not want to lose sight of the importance of acting on the ability to drive that GDP within our community. All of our communities, from Tilbury to Thamesville, from Wallaceburg to Wheatley, all will participate in the economic benefits that this project can provide. And thank you to the previous speakers who have spoken to the efficacy of this project as well. There are very important steps to be taken here in Chatham-Kent as we compete. And yes, we compete for investments. We compete for the young people to come to our community, to work, to have a family, to create economic activity. The project itself allows us one step further into that competitive environment to create the attractiveness we need those young people deciding on where to live and where to create their future. So thank you very much for your time. It is greatly appreciated. And we recognize all the hard work that you folks do for Chatham-Kent. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Stuart McHugh.
Good evening, Mayor Caniff and members of council. I'm Stuart McHugh, and I'm a proud resident of Raleigh Township, living on Lake Erie. Today I swam in the lake, but this time I wore my wetsuit. So it might be the end of the swimming for me, but it is a wonderful time to be a resident of Chatham-Kent. I'm very pleased to be here tonight to learn more about the Hub project that you'll be voting on. I believe it's one of the largest investments of taxpayer dollars in our community's history. I strongly support efforts to build consensus about how we can come together and strengthen the fabric of our beloved Chatham-Kent. King Street and indeed our entire storied downtown should be protected and should prosper. Based on the information available to the public, I believe the funding package for the Hub is defensible and reasonably sound today, provided several key risks are actively managed, namely property sale prices, reserve impacts, and borrowing cost assumptions. Overall, the plan appears to be financially sound. The construction contract came in competitively, there is a healthy contingency built in, and the financing plan spreads costs across property sales, reserves, and a long-term debenture that can be comfortably carried within the existing operating budget. That said, the economic picture in Chatham-Kent, as in municipalities across the province, is changing. And a few key risks could shift the numbers. First, the plan assumes about $9.3 million in proceeds from the sale of 3 municipal properties. Those sales are essential. But if the local real estate market softens and those assets sell for even 20% less, That's roughly a $1.8 million gap that would need to be filled through added borrowing or reserve use. Second, the plan draws heavily on reserves, including a $10 million advance from the Life Cycle Fund to be repaid over 10 years. That helps with the cash flow, but now reduces flexibility for infrastructure upkeep. Third, the project includes a 20-year debenture. While interest rates have recently moved lower, a positive sign, they could rise again before the debt is issued in 2028 or 2029. A 1% increase in rates would cost taxpayers roughly an additional $100,000 per year in debt service. On a more practical community level, I have reviewed the CK needs assessment that highlight housing affordability, the unhoused, and mental health as top priorities. But I've not seen information justifying the costs or the need to expand the library and museum footprints, nor clarity on potential staffing increases or impacts on rural libraries that many of us rely on and value. And so, if I may, a few constructive recommendations. Run a 3-scenario sensitivity analysis. Base case, 20% lower property sales, and 1% higher borrowing costs, and share the annual tax or operating impacts publicly. Lock down sale valuations by setting a minimum acceptable price and a clear timeline so projections stay realistic. Protect life cycle funding by ensuring the $10 million reserve advance is repaid on schedule and without long-term cuts to maintenance. Monitor borrowing conditions quarterly and issue the debenture earlier if the market is favorable. Pursue donations and naming rights, which the current plan conservatively assumes as zero, but could meaningfully reduce debt needs. Respectfully, if Council remains disciplined and proactive, this project can move forward without adding tax pressure, while giving our community a modern, shared space that reflects where Chatham-Kent is heading. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. And one more time for Marie Carter. Okay, Council has received her deputation via email. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, that finalizes the deputations this evening, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. They were emails. So for the consent agenda, the following reports have been pulled. Item 15A, the RFP award for contract R25-305 Chatham-Kent Community Hub has been pulled by Councillor Crew and Councillor B. McGregor. Item 15B, the motion of Councillor Story regarding providing detailed financial reporting and transparency on ongoing life cycle and operating costs for the Chatham-Kent Hub, pulled by Councillor Story. 15C, the building and land acquisition of 92 Churchill Street in Chatham, pulled by Councillor Jubenville and Councillor Doyle. Item 15D, the building and land acquisition Park Street Chatham properties, pulled by Councillor Jubenville. And 15E, the motion of Councillor B. McGregor regarding cemetery bylaw exemption and review, pulled by Councillor Brock McGregor and Councillor Jubenville. Item 17A, together CK Core Grant funding recommendations, pulled by Councillor Anderson. And item 17B, together CK annual grant guidelines update, pulled by Councillor Anderson. Therefore, the following reports remain on the consent agenda to be approved in one motion. Those items are 14A and B, 16A, 17C, D, E, F, 18A, B, C, D, and E.
Councillor Hall and Councillor Bondi, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
And seconded.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
We're going to move into item 15, infrastructure and engineering services. And I'm going to be making sure that we stick to the 5-minute guidelines for everyone. So just keep that in mind when you're speaking. Appreciate that. So 15, infrastructure engineering services.
15A, the RFP award contract R25-305 Chatham-Kent Community Hub. We have a presentation by Edward Soldo, General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services, and Gord Quinton, the Chief Financial Officer.
So before we start that, if council has any questions of administration after the presentation, we'll go through all the questions and then we will deal with the discussion afterwards, okay?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Edward Solo, General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services. I will be presenting this evening along with Gord Quinton, our Chief Financial Officer, and Marissa Mascaro, our Director of Engineering. Administration is here today to present the results of the RFP for the Chatham-Kent Community Hub, the final approval step prior to commencing construction. This is the accumulation of 2 years of work, thousands of hours of staff time, consulting time, and council time, as well as $3.5 million of consulting and investigations costs to date. I want to acknowledge the collaborative effort of many CK departments getting the project to this point. This project involves staff from finance, from legal, our purchasing department, planning, communications, customer service, our library, the museum, human resources, and of course my own team and IES. Special thanks to Greg Benson, our PM on the project, Rob Pollock, who's in charge of our facilities team, and Marissa from engineering. Next slide. Okay. The slide here identifies some very key milestones over the course of the last 2 years. As council may recall, council directed administration to proceed with the detailed concept design in January of 2024 for the proposed Chatham-Kent Community Hub, consisting of a combined civic center, library, and museum at 130 King Street in Chatham. Staff presented the detailed concept design to council on October 21st of 2024 and received direction at that time to proceed with the detailed design phase. On May 12th, 2025, staff returned to council with an updated cost estimate following completion of the detailed design and received approval to issue the construction procurement. The construction procurement was issued on June 25th of this year and closed on August 27th. Through the course of the construction procurement, there was over 70 potential contractors, subs, and suppliers who obtained a copy of the bid documents, and 6 bids were received. These proposals were evaluated using a 3-step process. The submissions were first screened for completeness and confirmation of mandatory requirements identified in the RFP. Proposals then underwent an evaluation of technical items as identified in the RFP. The fee schedules were received separately and only opened after the technical ratings were determined. The purpose of this was to ensure that we are retaining a high-quality contractor with the means, resources, and knowledge to undertake the project and to get the best value for money in terms of construction. As I mentioned earlier, 6 bids were received. 3 proposals met the minimum threshold, technical threshold, and proceeded to the fee evaluation. The proposal submitted by Fortis Construction Group Incorporated was deemed to be the preferred submission, ranked highest throughout the evaluation process. The evaluation process for the RFP shortlisted 3 contractors. The proposal by Fortis is recommended for approval at a total competitive cost of $39.2 million, and that also includes a $3.4 million contingency. The recommended bid is approximately $3 million underneath the cost estimate that was presented to council in May. Given the process followed and the level of contingency, administration is highly confident that this project will be completed within the budget of $53 million. The contractor has a strong team of subcontractors, including 4 that are from Chatham-Kent and 6 that are from the Windsor, Essex, London area. This will result in job creation and growth in the Chatham-Kent economy. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Marissa.
So subject to council approval of the contract award, the municipality will enter into what's known as a CCDC2 stipulated price contract type with a successful proponent. CCDC contracts are standardized industry forms widely used across Canada for vertical infrastructure projects, specifically such as this, including for municipal, institutional, and public sector developments. CCDC documents offer a consistent and legally recognized framework that supports clarity, accountability, and fairness in the construction delivery. In particular, the stipulated price contract establishes a fixed price for the contract. This works differently than our unit price contracts, which require payment based on actual units of work completed. This format is typical for this type of construction and requires that our contractor deliver the scope of contract within a fixed price. Now, any unforeseen items which are not contemplated within the contract are managed through our contingency. This approach manages cost certainty and allocation of risks between the municipality and the contractor. It's also important to note that administration also retained external legal input in relation to the approach of preparing the CCDC contract in preparation of the construction procurement package as well. And specifically related to tariffs, the potential impact of tariffs is being managed within the project budget. Any tariffs that were in effect at the time of bid closing are already included in the contract price. The project has largely specified Canadian and non-US alternatives where viable, and if changes to tariffs occur during the course of the project, and that would be specifically reciprocal tariffs implemented by the Canadian government, the project team and the contractor will explore non-tariffed options prior to the approval of any contract cost adjustments. In terms of the total cost risks of the project, these tariffs apply solely to material costs and do not apply to labor. Construction contracts are typically 50% labor and equipment and 50% materials. And as noted, the project team has specified Canadian or non-US alternatives for the majority of our materials. So the total cost risk of tariffs on the project is actually in the range of a few $100,000, which will be managed within the contingency.
Thank you, Marissa. So tonight, before you, we have a recommendation for awarding the construction services contract, as well as the contract administration and inspection for the consultant project team throughout the construction phase. The total project costs summarized on this slide include the recommended construction services RFP, which are in line with the previously developed Class A cost estimates presented to Council in May of 2025. The construction services RFP award includes a contingency of $3.4 million, as I mentioned earlier, and the project also includes a broader project contingency of about $3.7 million, which is noted for the balance of the project itself. The various project components are identified on this slide here. I will say that we also have a number of future procurements that we'll be doing related to furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and the total project costs come out to $52.8 million. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Gord.
So always looks at the financial implications. The consolidations of these, the Civic Center, Chatham Library branch, and the museum to one site will have a positive impact on the municipality's asset management plan, infrastructure gap, by having newly renovated buildings and selling two buildings in need of repair and the parking lot at 24 Cross Street. The lease of parking was brought to council at its January 15th, 2024 meeting. And then operating costs, including utilities, maintenance, and security costs, were brought to council at the October 21st, 24 meeting. Any library or museum service level change would be developed by staff and the library board and the museum advisory board, and then through EMT and brought forward in the 28 to 31 multi-year budget for consideration of the next council. But also offsetting that, there's also the strong potential, very strong potential, of donations and naming rights attracted to this project that will either, as directed by council, can be either be used to further reduce the on a debenture required or to offset service level enhancements that a future council may approve. These options will be explored and reported back to council when donation and naming rights agreements are in place and will be presented for council's approval. But in the current funding model, to be ultra conservative, 0 donations or naming rights have been included. The debenture is expected to be issued in 2028 or 2029 after the 2 surplus buildings and the library parking lot is sold. The project is completed and the donations and naming right decisions have been received and council's made decisions on them. Just to comment on that, though, if interest rates look to be going up, we could borrow a significant portion of that debt at rates today or rates a year from now. We don't have to wait till 2028, 29, but if rates stay constant, that's the current plan. The funding for the annual debt payment is recommended to be funding through the existing facility replacement operating budget with no tax increase required for the capital build.
Thank you, Gord. So in terms of next steps, subject to council approval tonight, construction is planned to begin in December of 2025 with a completion date targeted for early 2028. Additional procurements such as the furniture, the fixtures and equipment, and all the moving activities will be initiated at a future date. These activities are planned to align with the general contractor's construction schedule. Following the completion of the general contractor's scope of work, the municipality will undertake fit-up and move-in activities. The building is expected to be open to the public in Q1 of 2028. Further details and milestones related to the move-in period and public opening would be provided to council as the project progresses. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that's the conclusion of the presentation, and I'll open up for any questions.
Councillor Crew?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and thank you for the presentation. You answered most of my questions. I want to say thank you, Marissa, and I'm going to reference the next report, Councillor Story's motion, and in that you gave us a lot of information and reminded us with some reports and things. Like over 2 years, we've received a lot of reports and information, so I really appreciated the reminders in there, that the answers to all these questions, so I really appreciate that. So this is a question part, not comments. So Marissa, the CCDC, so from what I understood in the presentation, so it comes in at 39, whatever the cost is. So are we monitoring that, and how will we make sure that the contractor stays on budget? And how do we make sure that we don't increase costs and use up that contingency too quickly? Who's monitoring that to make sure that this all stays in line?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So appreciate the question, Councillor. So it's a collaborative effort. On the municipality side, we have a dedicated project manager who will be overseeing that contract and working closely with both our architect team and the contractor. We do have an architect team who also will be very involved through the construction and inspection and contract administration. We'll have regular recurring meetings with the contractor. They're still required to make progress draws, so we'd be paying in increments based on completed work. It wouldn't be all at the end. And then we have processes that the contract stipulates we follow for any cost adjustments. So they need to be approved and negotiated with the municipality in advance. So anything that we'd be using the contingency for will be followed through a process and approved by the municipality in advance.
Okay, so there'll be like milestones where we're keeping track of that all the way along. Thank you. References. Have we really thoroughly checked the references about with Fortis? I think that's the name, right? Fortis?
Yes, it is. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, our RFP process, as Mr. Soldo spoke to, was a three-part process. We had some front-end pieces that we reviewed from the submissions to ensure that they met completeness and requirements. And then we went through a very strong technical evaluation process. So there was a number of pieces that the contractors had to submit to us, including their schedule, their methodology, and other details. We also had representative project and reference submissions. And so all references were checked by all contractors. That included our project team calling and speaking with those references and going through all the details to confirm that the rep projects and their experience on those projects match. And as Mr. Soldo noted, we're assured that the contractor has very strong experience and capabilities to take on this project.
Perfect, thank you. So also I received, I think we all did, some concerns about parking, delivery to businesses on King Street during construction. They want to make sure that the businesses that are in the area can continue to conduct business, that it's not obstructed. These are normal questions for construction in areas. So how are we going to manage that? Or will it be the contractor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So again, collaborative. So the contractor will take over the site and they'll be required to manage the site. They do go through approvals from the municipality to encroach into our areas. As part of this project, they will be occupying the parking lane that's adjacent to the construction site, but they will not be occupying the roadway. So both lanes of traffic will remain open. All of the other parking areas around the site will remain open, but just the parking lanes specifically adjacent to the site will be occupied by the contractor as part of their staging and some of the work that's required.
Okay, thank you. Time for construction, I think you said 2028 is the targeted deadline,
Yes.
barring any problems?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, completion is targeted for the first quarter of 2028.
Okay, great.
Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yeah, I have some questions and just some things that I think were maybe omitted that I was curious about. The first question is, what is the base price of the Fortis bid, and what are the provisional items, and how much do they cost, and what's the difference? Like enhanced audio video stuff, but is that furniture or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the base price and the provisional items, so typically when we go out for construction procurements, we do include some provisional items we may or may not award, depending on what the pricing looks like and depending on what the pricing of those provisional items are. I don't have the exact dollars on me of what the provisional items are. I can certainly get that. But it was some enhancements to some of the electrical and audiovisual equipment that we were assessing whether that would be appropriate pricing for the total project. And those are included in the award, and so that's all within the cost estimate for the project.
Okay, so it's probably minimal, I would imagine, right?
Yeah,
In the
it
scheme of
wasn't a big
things.
component of it.
Okay, second question, the debenture, the loan, the $16.8 million loan, 20 years, if it was at 4% today, that would be a $7.6 million interest payment at the end of 20 years. So my question is, why isn't that included in the cost of the project? Because it's part of the cost of the project. Similarly, buying a car, if you finance it over 5 years, what you actually pay for it is what you actually pay for it. So I'm just curious why that wasn't part of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perfect example is the car example.
Yeah.
You're buying a $50,000 car, but you choose to finance it over 5 years. You might be paying $65,000 for the car in total payments over that years. But what did the car cost you? It cost you $50,000. It was your choice whether to come up with the money all right now or finance it over a period of time.
It was.
So,
but I'm still spending that money, though.
So similarly, council has a choice. If council wanted to pay for it all up front, it could do an extra tax levy all at once in 2027 or 2028 and raise $17 million extra that year.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, we could do that.
We don't advise that.
Oh, either do we.
We advise some intergenerational equity and spreading that over a generation or 20 years.
Right. Okay.
So not my
but you know where I'm going with this,
85-year-old father, for example, might not be around to pay doesn't have to pay all those tax bills because he's not going to be around in 15
Okay,
to 20
good.
years
So no,
from now.
sure, I get it. I just wanted to.
So it's intergenerational. Yes. If you add in the total payments of approximately $7 million a year, the number that you mentioned, yes, the cost would be the $17 million now plus that $7 million of.
Okay, I just want to be
of
clear that
interest
we're aware that that's an additional cost that is not, in the report. So that's fair. No,
Yes, and council could avoid that cost by
Sure we
just
could.
raising taxes all in 1 year.
Wouldn't be many of us left around to see that happen, but that's that. Okay, number 3, sale of the Civic Center. I'm really going to the fire hall here, but the, what are we hoping for? I'm sorry, what were we looking for the Civic Center? As a sale value, or we were hoping?
Between the Civic Center library and that parking lot, it's.
Just Civic Center.
9.3 million.
Just the
between
Civic
three.
Center.
But if I can, I think this is something you want to sell, so I'm not sure we'd want to share what the exact price is that we'd be looking for the Civic
Oh, I
Center.
thought it was in a report that we were hoping to get. But okay, it doesn't matter.
We're trying to do it on a combined basis, so we don't have to identify a specific number. That's
Well,
all.
that makes sense, yeah, I get that. Okay, so first of all, we've been beating this thing up for so long, I don't know that anybody would want to buy it, but there's that. But my real concern is when we sell this, we sell the fire hall. And that's not in this report at all. And we're going to have to build a new fire hall. And Strathroy built one a couple years ago for just shy of $10 million. So why isn't that part of this equation? Because that's a definite. It's going to be sold. We're going to need to build a new one. So I don't understand why that's not part of this equation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're absolutely selling the entire property, including the fire hall. Council received the fire master plan. I believe it was June 2024 when that came to council, and the direction that council approved in approving that master plan is to find a location south of the railway tracks for station number 1. So the fire hall is moving irregardless of the decision made tonight. The fire hall is moving. There are parallel reports being worked on to bring information to council as we work on the land specifics. And yes, I would give a very high level estimate of $15 to $20 million.
Right, okay.
In approximately for a 2028 build of a fire hall.
So we're going to do it anyway.
We're doing it anyway.
But I just felt that should be part of this conversation because we are selling the current fire hall. But that's fine, Gord, I get that. I'm going to try not to, I won't be allowed to break my 5 minutes, so that'll be that. The CCDC, which seems like a pretty good thing, are there any other contingencies other than tariffs under the CCDC 2 contract where the fixed price can increase? Other than tariffs, are we guaranteed to pay no more than $43,619,068.53? Is that in stone? That's what we're going to pay, aside from the tariff contingency, which I don't know is the tariff contingency in this number, or is it above this number?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the contingency that would apply for tariffs or any other unforeseens is within that number. It's $3.4 million. That's within the contractor's bid price.
Okay.
So that is how we would navigate the fixed price and any other unforeseens that we may need to address within that total value.
And so other than that, we are guaranteed to pay no more than the $43 million outside of tariffs. You know what I'm looking at here, overruns, right? We've seen, Mr. Hutchins gave us an example of 1 or 12 of them. So that's a guarantee. This is not going to overrun.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff is, as I mentioned earlier, highly confident that this project will come in on budget.
Well, I'm glad you're confident, but I'm sure we were confident about the roundabout, the tiny homes, and is it a guarantee? Do we have your word on it? Because nobody's going to come here and say, well, it's going to overrun for sure, because then what's the point? Why sit here?
I would say asking for a guarantee is really inappropriate, Councillor. I mean,
Inappropriate to know what we're paying for it and what we're getting?
I would
don't
say to you
think it's inappropriate.
that we're very confident, but there's no such thing as a 100% guarantee.
But, and if,
Well, there should be, but.
maybe if I can add, in addition to the $3.4 million contingency, there's also a $3.7 million contingency. So that's a pretty significant amount that should deal with any, unforeseens. I think we can't guarantee 100%, but we're very confident because of the type of process that it is, and also because we have contingencies that are quite handsome for this type of project. There was a reference made, I think, to the roundabout, and I'm not aware that the roundabout went over budget. So,
Not that I want to get off topic, but it did not. It came in under budget.
No, it didn't.
And so did the cabins.
So there's two contingencies. There's one for tariffs and then another one at 3 point something million dollars?
There
And
are
that's for
there are
overrun.
two contingencies, one within the contract with the contractor of 3.4 million, and then there is a project contingency of 3.7 million.
Okay, just as long as we're clear on that. Now, as far as the tariffs, I have a couple of amendments, but I'll hold off until we get there. But is that a two-way street? Like if tariffs are reduced, that money comes back to us, I would assume, but I'm just asking to clarify.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. So if tariffs were in place at the time of the bid closing and then tariffs were removed, that may come back to us. It would depend if the contractor's already purchased those materials or not.
Sure, of course, yeah.
But if not, then that would be subject to a negotiation process to effectively remove that cost from the project.
So that's good, because if
Yep.
they come down, then we get some money back. And if they go up, that's understood. Okay, that's it for me, and I'll have a couple of amendments, but I'll hold off for that until we get to that point. Thank you very much, guys.
Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Actually, my question is to Sean really briefly, if that's okay. And I don't want I know that you've provided significant detail in the past, and I'm not looking for like a real detailed, because you are very thorough when it comes to the asset management plan, and that's a good thing. But I did have a few questions from residents, and it's probably easier for you to summarize in a as unelaborate way as possible in regards to how would this benefit our asset management plan, reducing the buildings? I know that we have pertained to significant information, but can you just give the community just some knowledge on where those cost savings would come from in kind of a professional manner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the councillor. I'll try to keep this very brief, although I do love talking about asset management. So when you have three separate buildings that are aging and have significant maintenance needs over time, consolidating things down into one newer facility that is more efficient, provides a broader sense of service. Usually we run life cycle models to ensure that those costs are actually beneficial, because sometimes it's not. But when we put those numbers through, the cost savings of what you'll have to spend over the whole life of those three separate assets, consolidating them down into one asset, when we've run the numbers on it, it does seem to make sense to help reduce the gap, because you're offshoring those long-term costs and you're reducing your gap over time by investing properly. That's where an acquisition can come in handy and actually reduce your gap. That's where we would recommend that you would invest in something new, because over time it will save you money.
So really, doing this a type project like this will support our asset management plan from a beneficial perspective, in your opinion, which is very thorough and very detailed, I might add.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, yes, in my opinion, this would actually lower our gap over time, yes.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Quinton. Mr. Quinton, so I really appreciate all the contingencies in here. When I did make the amendment to the motion about a fixed cost, that was one of my biggest concerns, was in regards to escalating costs. So I really was appreciative of that, getting that supported. So I guess one concern I have, and it's not a concern, but it's that if these contingencies, let's say these buffer zones aren't surpassed, which is a great thing, and there's these additional monies left in here, let's say we do receive naming rights and we do receive additional funds for that. I guess what I'm trying to find is, do you need additional direction to ensure that those monies aren't being directed to a reserve just to sit there, that this is going to be utilized for a community? Because what I don't want to see is these being returned to a reserve that's not going to be utilized, but to take some of the pressure off potential, taxation pressures in the future.
Thank you for the question. So I can go either cost savings, not using the contingency, or donations, or naming rights, all lower the total cost of the project. But it will be a future council meeting's decision when a donation is made. A donation could be tied to increased programming. It might be on a donor might come forward and say, I'll donate $100,000, but only if you increase programming at somewhere. So I'm not saying that every dollar of donation and every dollar of naming rights is going to lower the final line or any savings of that contingency. Is going to ultimately lower that bottom. It depends on what it's used for. I would say the contingency, though, for sure, if we don't need it for the building, that's for sure coming off the debenture. But it's just that naming rights and donations that could have strings attached depending on the legal agreements that are drafted when they come forward.
Thank you. And Mr. Quinton and Mr. Solo, just briefly, has there been any projects that you've been a part of, either in your, here or other municipalities, that have had this significant much of thoroughness through the project to ensure that, it kind of went through a significant matrix on so many different levels? Maybe there is, but I'm just curious if this is at least up there to, our due diligence is at its absolute peak.
This is the highest I've seen in my 30 years at Chatham-Kent.
I would, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I would say that this project has had an elevated sense of attention from staff in terms of how we're procuring it. We hired an outside legal counsel as well to help us through the RFP. So I would say this is setting a high bar for all projects as we move forward.
Thank you. My last question, because I know that a lot of people probably want to speak, is just to our CAO. So, Mr. Dubin, one component of this that I know that you can't really put in a report, and I just wanted to see if it's even a probability, is that we're talking about the timeline of 2028. Is there potential for consultation or sending out some communication for potential acquisitions of the properties that we are going to divest while we're still in them, to ensure that we could start looking at that, the sooner the better in my perspective, as well as having user agreements to say, we have that. We purchased a property recently that had a year a year of operations while we did the acquisition. Can we start looking at that to look at potential interest parties, as well as agreements with the fire department, with the utilization of the building through maybe a year or something like that, so we can, because what I don't want to see is the stagnant cash flow being, 2028 it goes for sale. Now we don't get that money till 2029, 2030. It's really important that we can begin those steps right now. And I don't know if you need that direction or if that's something that you will look at.
Yeah, the short answer is of course we would. We don't need that direction. Subject to what happens here today, we'd be coming back to council with a plan in terms of timing for, when to conduct the appraisals. We don't want to be in a position, if in fact we move, that we have a bunch of vacant buildings. We would want the transition to be as quick as possible. I was going to use the example you did, which is we purchased a property on Sandy Street. There's still residents living there today. And they gave us significant notice. We will take possession as soon as it's empty. This way, there'll be very little transition between its current use to its next use. So I think that's a reasonable and a proper approach to take. So we would do that, but we would do that with direction from council all along.
Thank you. And then just lastly, Mr. Quinton, do you think, or maybe it's to the mayor, do you think that we would, having zero, I just think with a project in this nature that there would, I know you can't hypothesize an amount, but I can't see us getting no additional funds for naming rights or sponsorships or that. Do you feel that it's going to be zero, or do you think that there's significant potential? Not asking for specifics, just that if you see there's significant potential for additional funds to come into the project.
Thank you. There has been a public announcements from the Meyer Family Foundation. That has not been brought into this equation at all now. But through naming rights and other donation opportunities, once we have approval for this, we can actively seek naming rights and donations. And I think there's a very high value that will be put on for naming rights for for the Chatham Library or Museum. Of course, the Civic Center, you don't sell naming rights on a Civic Center.
Thank you. That's all from me, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I just have one question through to our CFO. So Gord, if I may, there are still some concerns that are floating around in the public that saying yes to the hub in Chatham, and in particular the library expansion, will risk and pose risk to the operations, the existence, the functionality of rural community libraries. When I read the report, I do not see anywhere in this report that financially we are going to need to close or reduce services in any of those libraries in order to fund or finance the CK Hub. So can you please confirm for myself and members of the public if passing these recommendations have, as they are, and knowing the current direction of council, if there is any negative impact to community libraries outside of Chatham?
So a few parts to that answer. I want to point to the mayor's budget where when direction was provided, it said no cuts to rural facilities. But in these reports, there has never been any mention of downsizing or limiting any rural library branches. But there's been in social media world, there's been a significant amount of chatter about that. I understand where that's coming from, but there's never been a plan for closure as part of this plan. This is about expanding the Central Chatham Library services and the Chatham Museum to provide more programming.
Okay, thank you. That's all the question I have.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor Story.
Thank you, through your mayor. Just a couple quick things. One, just with regards to the project manager, the temporary project manager. It says that the contract's going to expire Q2 2027. Construction should go until Q1 2028. So let's say like 9-ish months. But we're going to be getting a 2-year, extending the contract for 2 years. And I'm guessing the second year of that, like once construction's done and they're in, the project manager's duties with regards to the hub would probably be significantly less. So one, would it either be better to do a 1-year, extend the contract for 1 year with an option for a second year, or could we just do a 1-year contract and then potentially throughout the warranty period use somebody internally without adding an extra year on that temporary position?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. That position has been involved in detailed design. That position is going to be involved in actual construction of the project itself, in the commissioning of the project itself. To change midstream or not have someone there during the warranty period, they will not have the same knowledge and understanding of the project. So realistically, we want to have a consistent approach to dealing with the contractor and all the warranty issues. So this project, the 2-year extension would allow for that retention of knowledge as we move forward. And that's why we're recommending the 2 years. You don't want to have someone not being there who is involved in the project and having to figure it out from scratch.
Thank you very much. Secondly, so if he or she isn't as busy during the warranty period, are we able to put them on other tasks as well? I presume, I'd hope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is correct, Councillor. If there is other projects, such as, we talked about the fire station, other things, we would obviously have them busy full-time.
Okay, perfect. And then just one last question, kind of with regards to the staffing. I know for sure you said that you can't dictate exactly what our staffing is going to be going forward for the library or the museum. I would think that we would have, with that much extra space and potentially some extra services, we're going to have to hire a couple more people. In my opinion, if we are getting that much more space and if it's used more and we've got a lot more foot traffic, then hiring 1 or 2 extra librarians or 1 or 2 extra people to manage the museum makes sense, providing we have the numbers to do that. I presume you've looked into that a bit. Can you give us any sort of like verbal knowledge right now of what kind of staffing you are guessing to have down the road?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Dave Taylor, our Deputy CAO, to provide you a response there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. I understand you'd like that kind of high-level answer, Councillor. I just don't have it for you at this point. And it's not that we don't want to give that to Council or that we know about it or that we have kind of a ballpark number. It's just the process that we go through for determining all this. It's just kind of too early in order to be able to have gone through that yet. So we need to know from Council, are we going down this path? And then we'll take a serious focus on this. But just as an example, we don't really know exactly how the difference between the existing library and museum operations are and what this will look like from a kind of programming perspective, right? Like you might think it's a larger library, there's necessarily going to be more staff. There may be, there's that possibility for sure. But a lot of the increased staff space or a lot of the increased space is really more passive type space, right? When we get shelves that are more accessible, those take out more space. When we have additional programming space that can be booked, that takes out more space. It doesn't necessarily have a staff complement to it. And so we really want to be looking at all the different ways that we could be delivering library services and museum services before we know whether or not we'd actually even put forward a budget case for additional staff resources. That may be the case, but we also might be able to come forward by that point with a budget proposal that includes offsetting revenues as well, right? We're going to have this potentially, if council approves this fantastic new museum space that might have more room for programming. It might have event rental kind of revenue, and that could offset all of that, right? So just the one component of it is, might there be more staffing or more costs associated, is only one piece of the picture, and it takes us like months at a time to really work through developing that budget case. What are the needs? How's it actually going to look? Are there other ways of even doing it within existing, say, Chatham Library budget allocations now and the museum allocations before we would ever come forward with a budget ask? So I just don't even have a high level number for you, Councillor, because we have to go through all of those processes. There's even other components, like with the excitement that there is in the community about this, might there be an opportunity for volunteers in the museum that would reduce some of that? So we have to go through that process before we could even come to you with kind of an assessment.
Thank you, Dave. And that's kind of what I was thinking too with the books. Like I know our shelf, we want to have more accessible shelves, so they're going to be shorter. So the same amount of books is going to take up more space. So that doesn't really necessarily mean more employees at all. Again, I could see an extra employee or 2 down the road with the extra services, but I can understand that that you're not ready to give that answer at the same time. Thank you very much.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had one procedural piece. Would you be open to discussing my motion before we ultimately vote on the staff report?
No, this is questions currently of what's on the table right now.
Okay. Could you clarify what happens next?
So, Madam Clerk, as far as procedure goes.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks. We will be finalizing the questions with the presenters, and then they will be able to sit down, and then we'll have questions and comments from council. The mayor will be looking for a mover and seconder of the RFP award, and then during the comments, you're welcome to bring that your motion to postpone at that time. When that hits the floor, we'll talk about that. We'll vote on that. If it passes, it's done, and we'll wait until it comes back according to your motion. If it fails, we'll continue on with the motions on the floor for the main motion.
Wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it. Thank you to the staff for all of your work on this. Thanks to everyone who provided deputations today and over the last several years. I appreciate everyone's vision and the care that you have for our community. And whether we have the same vision or not, I appreciate.
Sorry, we're trying to focus on questions this time.
Yeah,
You can
I
comment
wanted
next.
to just
Thank
thank
you.
everyone first, but I appreciate that. Thank you. So in terms of so thank you. I will just get to my questions then. I had a couple of conversations with professionals in the construction sector not working on this project. And they had a couple of questions that they suggested I bring forward. So in terms of a project of this size and complexity, there usually is a 3-tier vetting process. Usually, so the RFP is vetting the bidders on the tender, but as I think, Edward, you mentioned that there will be a team of subcontractors. So who will be vetting those as well? Because there appears to be usually a 3-tier vetting process. So is that part of our responsibility, or who will be vetting the subcontractors on the project? Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So all of the vetting and review happened through the RFP process. So the contractor did identify their subs and their full project team and their price that goes along with the subs that they've identified. So that review all took place through the RFP evaluation process. Okay, so that's done ahead of time. So you already know who the subcontractors are? Is that something that is public knowledge, or? Through you, Mr. Mayor, not at this time. Subject to award, that information would be available. Okay, thank you. So in terms of the cost consultant piece, again, a lot of these projects of this size and complexity have an independent third party reviewing the bid packages just to make sure everything is, above board and so the public knows that the process is transparent. Did we have an independent third party who was not already employed by the municipality or not already being paid by the municipality to review this bid review package? Thank you.
The review team included staff from the municipality as well as our consultant, our Architectura. So that was our team that reviewed the bid package.
Okay, so there was not an outside consultant that reviewed that?
We did not feel it was warranted.
Okay, thank you. So to build on what a few of Councillor Bondi's points, I appreciate the CCDC2. I know Councillor Crew mentioned that the Canadian Constructions Documents Committee. That is, I'm very happy to see that as well, but that doesn't necessarily mean there won't be overruns. It just basically means, if I'm understanding it correctly, the price is fixed based on the scope of work. And if that changes, how do you manage that? So I think a question that, does tend to come back up is, what happens if there is a change order or a supplemental order with this? We find asbestos, or there's a serious act of vandalism, we start digging for the large expansion on the property, something's in the ground, what happens then? Who's responsible for those costs? Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, so we have a fixed price contract, so the contractor is responsible to deliver within the price, but there is a potential for unforeseens. As mentioned, our CCDC contract stipulates a process with change orders and approvals. So we have a contingency within the contract value, and there would be a process we'd follow if we did encounter any unforeseens to negotiate those cost adjustments with the contractor. So it would be subject to municipal approval for any additional costs within that. And then, as mentioned, there is additional project contingency applied for the total project, but we'd be looking to manage within our contract value, of course. Thanks. So if, for example, I'm just using a suggestion or just an idea, not any implication of the facility, but let's say we find, a material in the building that we need to remove. That's going to cost another $1 million. That's not included. I'm just using that as one example, not an actual reality, but let's just say that happens. We then go to the CCDC. I keep wanting to start singing Back in Black, but we're going to a process that we'll review with the contractor to say, listen, who's going to pay for this overrun? And if it's just a round number, it's $1 million, then we're going to probably say the contractor's probably going to say us. Then you discuss that and it comes back to council for approval, because I do see that even if we come across these cost overruns, we're already gonna be knee-deep in it, and we're not gonna be able to not approve it. Like, are we gonna say, no, don't clean up the asbestos, no, don't fix the vandalism? Like, I do worry that we don't have any options if we have cost overruns, because we're not necessarily gonna stop the project. We're just gonna keep paying and paying if there are any cost overruns. So I do worry that, I'm glad the CCDC is in place, but it doesn't really mean we're not going to be paying if we find those cost overruns. Thank you.
Through the mayor to the councillor. First and foremost, we undertook a very detailed design of this building. And as part of that, we did a lot of investigative work. Using the example that's been provided, asbestos, we had a designated substance report done throughout the entire building. Does that mean that we may find something additional? There's always that possibility, but it will not be very large. It's a very extensive amount of investigative work that we did. And if that there was an additional cost, we would have that conversation with the contractor. And if it's not in that report, then we would talk about who's paying for it. I will point out we have a $3.4 million contingency inside this contract. That should cover any unforeseens. And realistically, we're very confident in the amount of investigative work that we have done, as well as the detailed design, not to have any major cost overruns. They would be dealt with through our normal processes under our procurement policy with staff. And we would, if there was something that obviously was much larger, we would come back to council. But in terms of approvals, those would be done by staff.
Thank you for that. And I really respect and appreciate the due diligence. I think a project this complex in a building of that age, there can be unexpected issues that come up. We're seeing that in numerous other proposals that we're dealing with right now. So I do worry that that contingency is relatively low. $3 million on a $53 million estimated project, that could get eaten up pretty quickly. So I do have a bit of concern with that. Probably a question for Gord. There appears to be about 20% of the funding piece are assumptions and sort of high-risk financial commitments that we aren't necessarily sure of. So what happens if we don't sell? What happens if we don't have the 9.3 million from the sales? Thank you.
Just prior to sending that over to Gord, I just want to correct, it's not 3.4 million under 53 million. It's 3.4 million inside the construction contract, an additional 3.5 on top of that. So in the $53 million project, it's closer to $7 million of contingency.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Story, how many more questions you have? Are you done, or?
That was my last one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff.
Yeah, so I think it was related to the appraisals mainly of the sale of buildings, or was there another part of that?
Right, yeah, if we don't sell for the 9.36 million, what are our options? Thank you.
So first of all, those dollars was based on a time flies. That was 2023 when those appraisals came to council. Property values in general have continued to rise in Chatham-Kent. But these are unique buildings, so yes, there's an unknown. First of all, there's the contingency. So if the $7 million contingency is not used for construction needs, there's a potential that if we're $1 million short, for example, on the sale, well, that will just come out of the contingency. But equally, it could be $1 million more. Interest rates could go down. If it would, I'd try to lock in that debenture sooner when that happens. Interest rates could go up. I'll try to avoid that as much as possible. But by debenturing early, if it looks like our interest rates are rising, right now we're in a decline, so I'm pretty sure we're good for the next year here. So through all that, we're pretty confident that we won't need and then add naming rights and donations. Through all that, that's extremely confident that that $17 million debenture will be less in the end. But Could there be nobody interested in this building? Perhaps, but I would highly doubt that. I think through the appraisal process, they looked at comparable properties and they came up with the values.
Thank you. Sorry, just one quick follow-up. Is the contingency fee supposed to go towards the appraisal and the sale? I thought the contingency fee was on the construction project, because that could eat up the contingency fee in one fell swoop. Thank you.
Go ahead. So the 3.4.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's two contingencies. I want to be really clear on that. The 3.4 million is part of the construction project, which is, before you hear tonight, of $43 million. So in that $43 million, you have $3.4 million contingency. And in the overall project, the remainder of the project, which is about $8 or $9 million, there's $3.5 million more in that contingency. And that could be applied to other elements of the project.
Okay, that could potentially be half the cost of the sales. Just when I wasn't clear on that. Thank you very much.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
Sure, thank you. So we had a little contingency discussion there. A total $7 million contingency on a $53 million project. Would you consider that a low contingency, a high contingency?
I would consider that a very conservative contingency.
Thank you. And I related to Councillor Bondi's question about the cost of debenturing, and maybe this is a bit of an accounting question. And we haven't talked about it much recently, but we've certainly talked about it in the past when we've had these discussions. The present value of a future project. So I'm thinking about opportunity costs. So when we don't move ahead with the project, and then we have to do it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what, and I know we're not going to have a dollar figure for this, but can you speak to that impact on municipal finances? And I know, Gord, you have many examples, particularly around what's happened in arena builds in Ontario.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Arena example in Chatham-Kent would be a great example. When we started, I think the first proposal was for $25 million arena project. Then we went up to a $60 million project, $80, $90 million project, and now we're at a $160 million project because we delayed. And if we delay another 20 years on arena, I'm sure we'll be talking about a $250 million project. Mm-hmm. So there is that time value of the money. Yeah. Also, spreading the payments over time, yes, the interest rate might be 4%, but if inflation's around, let's say 2%, you're only paying a 2% premium on those dollars. You're not, as far as your cost of money. So I guess the financial
question is, does the cost savings from avoiding that opportunity cost outweigh the cost of debenture?
If you look at the past decade, where our construction costs have averaged 8 to 10% a year, it's much cheaper to do it now and get it done and know where your civic center, Chatham Library and Museum are for the next 75 years.
So it's cheaper to borrow and build than wait, save, and pay to build later, correct? Okay. Correct. I did have one other question for clarity around what I think was a really good question about rural library impacts. So that was a great question tonight. I was glad to hear we reaffirm it tonight, that this project isn't going to impact rural libraries. Is that information that has been confirmed in previous meetings that we've had? I could probably answer it because I've asked the question a number of times, and every time the answer has been the same. So I think what I was just asking was, that's been said all along, correct?
And there was never put into an administration report anything about closing rural libraries related to this project.
Thank you. And that's all my questions. Thanks.
Councillor Juvenville.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, and thanks for all the questions. I've stroked a lot of them off the list here, so I just have a couple. Can you just confirm the fees for consulting services in the amount of $875,685 be awarded as a contract amendment to Architectura? Can you just confirm what that is?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the Mayor. So Architectura has been undertaking the design of the project. They've been our consultant for for the past year and a half, done a great job on getting the design done. So the contract as amendment is to amend their existing contract we have with them today. We have a contract with them to undertake the detailed design. That's done. So now they would be undertaking the contract administration, as Marissa indicated earlier on, being on site, doing the contract administration, dealing with the contract.
Okay, so this is kind of like an addition.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a comment about the fire hall. I know that's a concern, but I just want to clarify, we have never made a decision as council as to what we're doing with the fire hall. We just know the province has stated we need a fire hall on the south side. So that wouldn't necessarily mean we have to uproot the fire hall. We just need to make sure we could have a satellite fire hall like we do on Sandy Street. So that is an option. It's just, we've never decided as council what we're doing. I just want to clarify that's not a decision of council that we've made yet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask Chief Case to answer that.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the Master Fire Plan was, Council gave direction that the Master Fire Plan should formulate the strategic direction for the next 10 years. And it was quite implicit that number 1 fire station should move to south of the tracks. So that is the direction that we're operating on right now, and that's the land we're searching for.
Okay, thank you.
But if I can, Your Worship, it has nothing to do with the province. The province did not dictate anything about our fire halls, nor would they.
Okay.
It was a consultant that did a report and identified that given the growth in Chatham-Kent, not just Chatham, but all of Chatham-Kent, that where our current station is, which is about 100 yards that way, is not adequate in terms of response.
Right.
There's been significant growth in the southwestern part, particularly of Chatham, but also there's been growth in the western part of Chatham-Kent as well. And so the feeling was that the next fire hall needs to be located somewhere not here.
Right.
There were also some discussions about, having 2 fire halls north of the railway tracks. And so just to be clear, it had nothing to do with the province.
Okay.
It was a representation, a recommendation from consultants.
Consultant, okay, thank you. You mentioned, I just want to confirm, because I don't know that we've ever seen the parking garage lease. I just want to make sure there's provisions in there. Like, how long are we guaranteed to have parking spots? Is there a timeline on the parking lease agreement that says that we have access to parking for 10 years, 20 years? Or is there anything like that in the parking lease agreement?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask our Director of Legal Services to answer that.
So I'd have to take that way to review. I'm not sure if Mr. Taylor perhaps can speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dave Taylor, Deputy CAO. I was involved in negotiating that agreement, so happy to comment on it. So the initial term for the parking agreement was 10 years. However, what we negotiated with the owners of the garage was a right for the municipality to renew that for extra 10-year terms. So functionally, Chatham-Kent can continue to secure that parking for up to 50 years.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, so we are using, some of this money is coming from reserves, and we're always told we have to replenish the reserves. So are we going to be expected to replenish the reserves that we are accessing?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you're referring to the existing building lifecycle reserve transfer of 6 million. What that represented was basically that in the next 10 years, this being a newly invested in business, there won't be any life cycle repair costs in that time, and that instead of if we were to keep the older buildings and keep reinvesting into them, this would be a savings over time that we could capture and allocate towards the project costs.
Okay.
So there's no plan on, to be clear, there's no plan on raising taxes to replenish that reserve.
Okay. So we don't have to replenish it? Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you. I'll ask Councillor Crew and Councillor B. McGregor to put the motion on the floor, please.
Happy to move it.
Happy to second.
Councillor Crew, and then Councillor B. McGregor, then I'll go to Councillor Story, put her motion on.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I don't have a lot to say. The questions were really good. Thank you to everyone who came with deputations. I just really like the vision that I think Lucinda spoke very well about the vision. And I think that if we have a vision, and like you said, sometimes it's fearful to make those decisions, to make your vision a reality, because sometimes it's very difficult. But like Rory said, if we keep putting it off, it's going to cost more in the long run. And I've been here a long time, and I've seen these projects get kicked to the wayside, and there'll be another day or a better day. The better day never comes because the money is always more. Fixing this building, for instance, I don't recall the first number, but it just, over the years, it's gone millions and millions and millions of dollars more, and it's just not feasible. I want to speak about staff. We have a very competent, trustworthy staff who have done everything that we have asked. They have answered every question that, every question in every which way imaginable. And I really appreciate their patience for, sometimes I felt like people were saying that they weren't telling the truth or not being trustworthy. And I find them to be extremely competent and trustworthy. We have one of the best staffs here, and they're always ready to answer our questions. And I expect when they're monitoring this project going forward that they will do the same. It's not just us, it's them, it's all of us. We work together to build our community. And this is not a Chatham project. This is definitely a Chatham-Kent project. And building our downtowns, whether it's Blenheim, Dresden, Chatham, wherever, enhancing those, that vision for a vibrant community and a vibrant downtown puts us all on the map, and we all win. So thank you, everyone. I may have something to say afterwards, but yeah, that's it. I look forward to this becoming a reality in our community, and I hope everyone supports it. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Story.
Thank you. And I agree with a lot of what Councillor Cruz said. I think this has been, in my time here, the most transparent, community engaged process that I've seen for any project proposal. It's the most information I've ever read on one subject, and that information was incredibly responsive. When there's been questions about accessibility, when there's been questions about comparative costs, when there's been questions about debenture costs, we've taken the time to ask those questions, and we've gotten the answers, and I think that makes me feel confident about the project. I know a lot of us were waiting to see this night, to see what the number would be, because at the end of the day, it has to make fiscal sense for Chatham-Kent, for the municipality. It's really clear that it does now, and I think that that makes it an easy decision to go forward. So I'm really positive about this process. I think we've taken the time we've needed, we've asked the questions that we've needed, and we've got the answers that we needed to make a confident decision going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to defer to my colleague, Councillor Bondi. I believe he had an amendment to that motion, so I wanted to make sure that if he is process piece before we get to that, to get to my motion, if that amendment needs to come now. Thank you.
Councillor Bondi, you can put that on the floor, working with the mover and the seconder after Councillor Story puts her motion forward.
Oops. Yeah, sure, Mayor Kent, whatever works. Like, as long as it gets out, like, that's fine.
You will have your opportunity, certainly.
Thank you very much.
Yes, unless Councillor Story's deferment, then we won't be talking, you won't be bringing up the amendment, so.
I got it.
Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I please move that we discuss my motion at this time? Thank you.
Yes, so your council, or I'll go to.
Thank you. Just to let the public, anyone listening in council know, you'll notice on the agenda, item 15B is the motion by Councillor Story with regards to the motion she brought forward last time. If we wait to deal with it after A, we vote on it, it's kind of irrelevant. So we have discussed that it is the appropriate time for her to bring her motion to postpone this RFP until the report comes back, and that's her motion, to do it now. And then if it's approved, we postpone. If it's failed, we go on to the main motion for the RFP. So Councillor Story, if you'd like to read your motion at this point, and it's a motion to postpone, then we can deal with that one in the middle of this one.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for that accommodation. I really appreciate that opportunity. So my motion is regarding providing detailed financial reporting and transparency and ongoing life cycle and operating costs for the CK Hub. Whereas in the interest of transparency, Council and the taxpayer should have the full financial picture of the old Sears proposal in order to make an informed decision about whether or not to proceed with the next phase. And whereas the costs of any project are not just upfront construction costs, but long-term life cycle and maintenance costs, operating costs like increased staffing needs, utilities, insurance, security equipment, IT, and more. And where Council and the public have not been presented with the detailed ongoing operating costs of this proposal. And whereas under provincial legislation, Chatham-Kent is legally required to fully understand and plan for the cost of delivering services, including requirements to produce and maintain asset management strategic policies, plans, service levels, financial and life cycle planning. And whereas administration's October 21st, 2024 report passed by Council detailed asset management plans and overview document states once CK acquires an asset, the municipality must fund the remaining life cycle costs such as operations, maintenance, and likely inevitable renewal. These other life cycle costs are far more significant than the initial construction or purchase cost and are often multi-generational. Since life cycle costs are spread across multiple decades, Chatham-Kent must approach its asset planning with a long-term view to ensure it effectively manages the assets and assists in making informed choices. And whereas, as identified in the detailed asset management plan report to Council on April 28th, 2025, there's a $236.3 million annual funding shortfall for the next 10 years for a total of $2.3 billion for current assets owned by Chatham-Kent, a cost that does not appear to be sustainable without tax impacts or elimination of assets. This is without the addition of the old Sears building reconstruction. And whereas Council has not yet received a detailed asset management plan specifically related to the old Sears proposal to date, including the cost increases associated with the 41,118 square feet increase in size of the Civic Center Library Museum over existing building sizes. And further, these costs do not appear to be included in the existing budgets or the $236.3 million annual shortfall. And whereas any potential increase in staff or potential increase in operating budgets for the Chatham Library branch at the old Sears site and the Chatham-Kent Museum branch at the old Sears site, despite an increase in space of 90% and 150% respectively, have not yet been provided to Council. Therefore, in order for Council to have a full financial picture of all potential costs of the old Sears building that includes not only upfront construction costs, but ongoing annual life cycle, financial and sustainability requirements required by provincial legislation, be it resolved that this item be deferred until complete ongoing costs of this proposal can be prepared by administration for Council and public review. This report should include the incremental annual life cycle costs and any potential tax impacts needed to ensure the sustainability of the old Sears building, including but not limited to full costs for the project manager for duration of the project, amount of annual increases for utilities, maintenance, and security, interest charges from all debentures, amount of annual increases for costs resulting in increase in operating size, including flooring, furniture, shelving, HVAC, roofing, mechanical, electrical, exterior, and interior upgrades and parking. And last but not least, any increase in staff and any increase in respective operating budgets resulting in expanding the Chatham-Kent Museum space by approximately 150% and the Chatham Library branch by approximately 90%, and how any of those potential increases will impact overall museum and library service levels across Chatham-Kent. Staff return to Council with this information before the end of 2025, or I've suggested a suitable date for administration. Thank you.
Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Jubenville? Councillor Story, go ahead.
Thank you, and I appreciate again the opportunity to speak to this motion in the reverse order, so thank you for that. I did want to thank everyone who came tonight and shared their feedback, and it's great to see the engagement in our community for such a long period of time. I agree with Councillor Brock McGregor. This has been a long process, and there's been a lot of detail provided. A lot of great vision, and vision is great, but we don't always have the money we need to realize that vision, because that vision needs an implementation plan. And I worry when we get to this phase of any project, the sunken cost fallacy can rear its ugly head, whereby a person or organization is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they have already invested heavily in it, even when it's clear that the abandonment of that may be more official, and that often happens with financial decisions. So I do have those concerns that we feel like, well, we've gotten this far, we've just got to keep going. When we don't, we have reports that indicate at length that repairing what we already own is significantly less expensive. So I have a couple of points that I just wanted to raise. The reason why I brought this motion forward was based on the concerns I'm hearing from the community and concerns that I had as a library board member about the fully funded piece of this proposal and how that impacted our libraries and museums and how it impacted our bigger picture. Because right now, I still don't feel like we have that full picture. And for a fully funded life cycle report, based on my understanding of these reports to council, I don't think we can guarantee that we're not going to see tax increases. We're not going to see service cuts that will be required to cover that shortfall. So I see in the response to my report that we have, the response to my motion, that we have $6 million to spend on those renewal costs, when meanwhile, even if we had the service, the 37 or the $53 million, we would not be able to cover that. So I do have a question for staff, perhaps it's for Edward or for Sean. Is this proposal currently included in the $2.3 billion gap or the $2.36 million annual gap? And if not, would that not require a tax increase or a potential service cut to fund that shortfall? And I want to reiterate Councillor Sakachi's comments. I think the asset management plan reports you provided to us were one of the most interesting and informative reports we've gotten this term. I really appreciate the detail you provided on that. I learned a lot from that, and that's why I have more questions, because I'm not quite certain that we've gotten quite to the finish line on those numbers for this proposal. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the councillor. Great question. So this proposal wasn't included in the asset management plan at the particular time because it hadn't been, it's an acquisition. So until council provides direction that, yes, we are going to do this thing, it doesn't go into an asset management plan. However, in the $2.3 billion, that was 2.3, 2.4, pennies here now, the replacement of the library, the museum, and City Hall are part of the replacement costs for what was included in these asset management plans at this time.
Thank you very much. In terms, I'm not sure if this is a you question or another team member question. If I'm reading these reports correctly, it doesn't appear that renewal costs are budgeted for in the incremental increase of the almost 42,000 square feet. So because we're expanding, we're not having the existing footprint of the library, museum, and we're not having the library, museum, and civic center sort of apples to apples. We're now adding essentially another full library space, 42,000 square feet, to that incremental cost. So would that not add to our bottom line on that front? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, it's a great question. You have to do the whole life cycle analysis there of the three buildings and compare it to the new one, and that's what Marissa and the team did go through. Is they did take a look at the costs across the board for that. Now, I know you're talking about renewal costs, but until you've actually built the thing, you don't have to really plan for the renewal until you know you're going to build the thing. So until we get direction, for that. To further that as well, the renewal, there is so much competing need right now for resources that the renewal amount is actually fairly small when you look at it going forward. We ask you, when we talk about fully funding, as you were talking about earlier in your comments, fully funding is over time. And I believe when I came to council, I suggested that it would take us 30 years to be able to get ourselves to a situation where those reserves would be in an appropriate spot. And that's where we also had came to council and suggested that there's a time when acquisitions do actually help lower that gap, and that the good use of debt is a really strong position for municipalities to take. You don't want too much, you don't want zero. You want to be using it for the right things that are going to target the reduction of your gap and reduce your whole life costs.
Thank you. So if I'm understanding correctly, we have not done that yet.
So you'll have another 5 minutes, but you're past your 5 now.
Oh,
So
okay.
you'll have another
Thank
5
you.
as the mover. So
No, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Thank you, Sean.
Councillor Juvenville, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I just have a question. The concern of being in, non-compliance with provincial legislation, is this a real issue? Should we be concerned about this by not having all of these costs listed? Is this a real concern that we should be having right now?
Through Mr. Mayor, no. We are not in compliance by doing what we're doing. Short answer.
Okay. And Councillor Story, I was wondering if I could make a friendly amendment. Could when it says amount of annual increases from utilities, maintenance, and security costs, could you add in parking as well? Or is it in there? Is parking in there?
No, I don't think it is. Yep, that
Okay.
is a friendly amendment. Yep.
Like parking costs? Oh, is it? Oh, it is. Sorry, it is there. It's there. Okay, excuse me. That's all I have.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I appreciate the dialogue on this, but I won't be supporting this motion. And I find that the filibustering during council meetings on this topic has deterred the public from really listening to council meetings and getting the facts in real time because of the length of the meetings that we have. And I also think that it's allowed those that are opposed to nitpick and snip apart certain things that would deter people from being in favor of a project like this. And I think that that's been detrimental in the public outlook on this project. But further and probably more detrimental to the progression of this project and the public perception of it is the delanter nature of such a motion like this and numerous previous motions prior to this one. So I will not be supporting it, as I did not support the others. Thanks.
Councillor Finn, followed by Councillor Scacchi.
Just a few quick questions. What is our life cycle cost for each one of the three entities right now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. We don't have the specific, I have not done a report up on those three specific buildings to tell you what those life cycle costs, but they include all things that would be your electricity, your insurance, any maintenance. So on some of those ones that I did look into for the library building, for the museum building, and for this building, there is significant life cycle costs coming up due relatively shortly when you consider the life cycle of a building. So more money needs to be spent to be able to maintain those buildings at the levels of service that they're currently being offered at. But I don't have the specific numbers right here to be able to tell you specific.
If in the hub, our life cycle costs are cheaper than the three entities, where does that extra money go to that we've already allotted?
Through Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. I think we've, on a number of occasions tonight, talked about the concept of taking three old buildings that require a lot of work and building one new one, and how that is a life cycle savings. So that life cycle savings helps offset our deficit that we have, our $2.4 billion shortfall that we have. So it's going to fund us fixing up other buildings, or at least closing the gap that we have.
Okay, thank you. Now, you see what is being asked in the motion. Would those details or the information regarding each be available after the project is completed, and when that information would become available?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. I would refer council to the staff response to the notice of motion. We tried to break it down for each of the aspects there. Much of the information that is being asked in this motion has already been provided. We've provided numerous reports to council in the past related to the operating costs, the maintenance costs, the issue related to the full project manager. That's actually in the report that we are presenting to you today. So that number is already included. And I would say to you, aside from all the information we've already provided to you, we really don't have much more information to provide on this project. And as it relates to the motion in front of you, we've spent the last number of reports providing you with both the operating and maintenance costs. So at this time, if council was to pass this motion, I'm not exactly sure what I'd come back to you with.
No, I see you've given us the forecasted, but what I'm meaning is, say you forecasted a certain amount, but it comes in lower or higher in the future. Will that be released in a report?
Thank you, Councillor. Excellent question. I think what we'll know better is once the building is constructed, built, and we move in, what the actual costs are. Right now, those are projections that we provided. So until we get to that point, it's very hard to determine actual costs.
Thank you. I was just meaning that it would be available in the future.
Correct.
Councillor Scotchy, followed by Councillor Harrigan.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just through to Mr. Soldo as well. Councillor Jubenville did ask a question about the compliance aspects of things, and I understood your answer, but I just wanted to ensure that the public was assured of your answer as well, is that we are in compliance with everything as it goes. It's not that we're not in compliance. You're not concerned about any compliant nature. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I apologize for my double not, but we are in compliance.
I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified, because I didn't want anybody to take that we weren't in compliance. Just a quick question, two really quick questions to Mr. Quinton. Mr. Quinton, when the Civic Centers came to council to be repaired, was it 3 times, or was it, I think I was part of 2, but was it 3 times or was it 2 times?
I believe 3.
What was administration's recommendations all those 3 times that come to council?
Those previous 3 occasions were to repair and upgrade the Civic Center.
So at the time when you made the recommendations to repair, was it the most fiscally responsible thing to do?
At the prices at that time, yes, it was.
Okay, and then the reason why the recommendations is coming now is because we have a date on this particular report back that we have to give them a yes or no by, right? So I'm guessing this motion here would essentially, what would then transpire? We'd have to do this entire process all over again? Is that something that would have to happen?
That might be a legal question. I wonder if, Emily, as far as what happens if we postpone tonight as far as the contract, but in general, there are several parts of this that came together as part of this opportunity, and one was the building that council went ahead and purchased that has a return date coming up as well, where council has an option to sell it back to the developer. So there's multiple deadlines that were faced tonight, and that's why you really need a decision by council tonight. Are you going forward with this project or not?
I think that's all the questions I had. I just wanted to ensure that, and just one brief comment is, I'll be the first to say that it's interesting hearing some councillors that were back in those times say that we should be fixing our old things, because that wasn't the narrative back when we had the opportunity to fix them significantly cheaper. put my hand up to say I'm one of those individuals that buckled under the pressure of the community saying, we're struggling with financial challenges, we're struggling with homelessness, we're struggling with uncertainty. I was one of the individuals that said, no, let's not spend money. A lot of the people that, well, the majority, it failed. So majority was saying the same thing, and it was because of that when it came to council again. So here we are deferring something again to another time that at the end of the day, it wasn't smart for us to do that. We should have fixed it. And I remember talking to Councillor McGregor and him indicating to us, like, it's just going to become more money. But the pressure in the community was extreme, as it is right now. The only reason why I'm supporting the motion that's on the floor is the fact that from a financial perspective, I can't justify putting somebody in this shoe next term or the term after to spend $105 million when we have the ability to consolidate, lose some assets, and the assets that we're losing are not in rural areas, they're actually in Chatham. So my last comment is that I take our services that we have in rural communities and outlying communities extremely seriously. And if there was anything in this report whatsoever that would indicate that we would not be supporting or continuing to service our rural communities, then I would not be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. Councillor Fing kind of alluded to what I was just going to say, and I will be very brief with my comments. I appreciate that Councillor Story brought this motion forward because there was a sense that perhaps we needed more detailed information. And I actually just want to applaud and commend staff, because if you look at the link and the staff report that was provided, it does in detail, parallel to the itemized numbers in the notice of motion, go through and provides the financial details to help us support this decision. And I know some of the deputations have suggested that perhaps we need to do a deeper dive on operations and what that looks like. And all of that is provided for us in the report without us even passing the motion. And so that was work that staff has done, really anticipating some of the questions that we have and in response to a motion that hasn't passed. And I think that that would have taken a lot of time. And certainly I'll give kudos to, I believe it was Marissa, that is the lead author on the staff report. This report is very reassuring to me. Certainly when it comes to program staffing, are we going to approve more staffing? To me, I see this as no different than other conversations that we've had. We're expanding some recreation spaces. In a future date, could staff come back to us and say we need more or less staff and we decide that at budget time? Absolutely, that's possible. But I don't think that that should hinder the discussion that we're going to have now. So I just wanted to summarize to say that this motion to postpone is no longer really needed because we have all the information that we have. And thankfully, to those members of the public that are asking, we have a quick link to send anybody who sends that follow-up email asking for more information. So I really do appreciate the staff response to this. Thank you.
Councillor Wright, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
I'll pass. It's already been asked. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer about the implications of delaying, and I think that's important, and I think we should be ready to make a decision tonight based on the information we've received in the past. Much like Councillor Harrigan, I appreciated the response in the administrative response to the motion that not only pointed out that information to anyone who hasn't seen it before, but it also pointed to when we had received it in the past. So I think what's really important for the public, and in response to some of the emails we received, in response to some of the deputation we've seen, is I'm uncomfortable with any insinuation that we're making this decision without enough information. We've received this information. Not only have we received it, but we've asked for the same information over and over again, re-received it multiple times in different formats, provided it to the public. So it's available. It's noted it's available here. And I think that we have enough information to make a decision. And I agree with Councillor Anderson and Councillor Sakachi and some of those concerns. And I think that one of the few downsides of this process has been, some of the social media response, some of the seeding of distrust of the process that frankly isn't true. When you read through these reports, when you look at the questions that have been asked, when you look at the answers that have been provided, the information we have, thinking that we're making a decision without enough information when I look at the history around the council table and the information we've received whenever we make decisions, we've got a ton of information. We know where it is. It's been provided to us before, again and again. So we have the information that we need to make this decision. The public should be confident that that information has been provided to us. The public should be confident that we've read it, we've reviewed it, we understand it, and we can use it to make a decision. So I won't be supporting this motion, and I hope that the public has confidence through this process that we've done our job, that staff have done their job, and we're ready to make a decision. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to take a second to say thank you to the folks who gave a deputation tonight and all the other deputations over the years. There's been countless rounds of deputations and debates and motions and amendments and petitions to kill the hub, to reverse amalgamation, and politics and lots of politics. And one running thread that I've been hearing from the more vocal political voices in the municipality is stop it before it's too late, or hit the brakes before it's too late. And as I stated in an email today, the ship has sailed. It's not even in the offing anymore. It realistically hasn't been for a long time. I know technically we could have killed it at any step of the way, but keep in mind, and this is from a guy who's voted against it all the way down the line, that in 2017, staff recommended renovating the Civic Center. Councillor Anderson just asked me how long we've been discussing this, and she's measuring in hours, and I'm measuring in years. In 2017, staff recommended renovating the Civic Center. Residents and lobbying groups all decided that was a very bad idea and we shouldn't do it. So council voted no, and I voted no. In 2020, staff recommended renovating the Civic Center, and residents and lobbying groups all agreed that that was a very bad idea and we shouldn't do it. So council voted no, and I voted no. And things continued to percolate in the background. Time moved on, and we come to closed session June 26th and July 10th, 2023. And to quote Mr. Hutchins, the hub has always been a divisive concept from the beginning. And that is very, very true. Might get in trouble here. So divisive that some folks in that closed session voted no. Some folks voted yes. And some folks decided to vote yes in closed and make a public display because they wanted to vote no in open. Because politics. And that's the moment the lines were cast off. It came to open. Residents and lobbying groups all agreed that it was a very, very bad idea and we shouldn't do it. But it passed when it came to open, and that's when the ship set sail. And since then, it's all become politics. And I'm interested in policy. I'm interested in what's doing right for this community. And the longer I've sat here and the closer we get to 371 days from now, the more and more disgruntled I get with politics. So I won't play the politics anymore. I'm going to call the politics out when I see it, and I won't support this motion because the ship has sailed, and I don't want to play these games anymore. And I'll support the motion that comes back after this one. Thank you.
Hey, seeing no other questions, I'll go back to the seconder and then back to Councillor. So Councillor Juneville, then Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I respectfully disagree. I don't think this is politics. I think it's just asking for a full list. I mean, for example, I don't know what the security costs are going to be, and I don't know how much parking is going to be. So I was looking at this just to have a fulsome comparative chart with everything on it of what we're paying now, what we potentially will pay, and just so we can make a educated decision based on comparing these costs of everything listed here, which I appreciate the response that was given to Councillor Story's motion in the report. I appreciate that because there was a lot of information included in that, but unfortunately it all wasn't included. So that's why I support this, because I would like to see how much all of this is going to cost. I think it's imperative that we know every detail of how much we are going to be spending if we go ahead with this, which, I mean, we are going ahead with it, but I think it's important that we know all the details. So I have a question. If this were to pass, then the other motion for the tender would obviously not. how long would this take to come back if this were to pass? Do we know? Do we have any idea?
I think, Your Worship, I think what staff is explaining is that we're not going to be able to bring anything different back. So you're going to get back exactly the same thing that you have now, which is...
For example, I didn't see any security costs.
Well, security costs were provided in a previous report.
Okay.
But I can tell you, for instance, in this building, at the beginning of the year, we had a sense of what security was going to cost. We don't have security at the front desk anymore because things changed. Operationally, things changed. We have security at council meetings, but we don't have security at the front. So asking us to predict what security is going to be in 2.5 years, I don't think we could do that. There's a process that we go through for operations. Council approved recently the building of the cabin project. We give our best guess on what staffing will cost. I don't know what staffing is going to cost in 2028. It could be significantly more, or it could be less. And so I don't know how long it would take, but I can tell you we're just going to give you the same answers we've given you all along. And as one of the councillors said, it might look a little different, but the information is going to be exactly the same.
Right. It's just never been compiled in one nice comparative chart. I guess that's what I was looking for. So, and there's never been anything on parking, how much we are going to be paying for parking. Because that's a cost we don't have right now. We don't pay for parking. So.
We did provide information on the parking agreement in terms of how much it was going to cost. I think we also provided some details in terms of, I believe there was even a question about how many parking spots would there be for electric vehicles. That's the level of detail we actually provided responses to at council.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone for your comments. I really appreciate the opportunity to discuss this tonight. Just a few comments that I had prepared and then to respond to some of the comments made. Looking at the timeline, we're still on the timeline, I believe, that was provided by staff. None of the motions that I prepared earlier, not all that passed, did not cause a delay. Someone might call it filibustering, and that's a bit of a cheap shot, I think, because I would call that doing due diligence for the taxpayer and reflecting the fairly constant feedback we've received from constituents across the community that have raised questions, but tomato, tomato, I guess. The intent of my motion is twofold: to figure out why we were allegedly sort of going against the asset management plan from the province, and also looking at the construction or the costs of the library museum. And to Councillor McGregor's point, yeah, we have received a lot of reports, absolutely. I would say, as we should, about the construction costs primarily and some high-level operating costs. I can't speak to the decisions that were made in previous terms, but we're on this council this term and we have a responsibility to make responsible financial decisions. It's easy to write off opinions you don't like as politics, or write off the genuine concerns of taxpayers who see their costs going up across the board and worry about adding more financial burden to their plate. We don't have the staffing costs, plain and simple. We have key financial information that has not been included. And we don't have those costs, and I have a concern with that. That was the reason for my motion. And we cannot guarantee, just because it hasn't been written in a report, you're never going to see, we're going to close X, Y, or Z library. You're not going to see that in a report. That doesn't mean that won't be on the docket in the future, because we don't have all the information yet. We don't have those costs. That's why I'm asking for it to be done now, not later. Let's build it and figure it out on a wing and a prayer in 2 years and just hope things sort out for themselves. Now is the time to get that information, because here's the thing, this is not our money. This is not, the chair's money, it's not council's money, it's not administration's money. This is not our money, this is the taxpayers' money, and we have the obligation, a legal fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we make decisions with that money. We do so with all the information in front of us, and when you don't account for those costs, when those costs come due, where do they come from? Existing budgets? If the Chatham branch needs more resources, where is that going to come from? We know that libraries in the past, if you paid attention to any budget session for the last 30 years, libraries are on the chopping block almost every year. So where is that money going to come from? If we don't budget properly for something like staffing, That's going to mean usually cutting services or increasing taxes. So now we are digging ourselves potentially into a deeper hole. Just last week, we turned down a proposal, and rightfully so, that was actually going to generate us revenue because we didn't have enough information. We have a $2.3 billion disaster on our hands, and we cannot stick our heads in the sand and take such a huge gamble with taxpayers' money. We are already in the hole, and with this proposal, we have the shovels paid for by the taxpayers, and we're just going to keep on digging. And then hope that in maybe 2 years, who knows what's happening with the recession, an economic disaster with tariffs, the political upheaval to the south. We don't know what's going to happen. And instead of the responsible thing, like most of us are doing in our personal lives, fixing what we own when it's our money, we are the stewards of the public purse. And that means knowing all of the financial information so we can make an informed, transparent decision. And we are not at that stage right now. We are using the taxpayers' money that the majority of us have said to us again and again.
1 minute.
Thank you. So they don't want it. That doesn't seem to matter. So let's be clear when we're voting on this. It should not be that hard to figure out. We have a competent staff available to bring this information to us. So let's remember, when we cannot guarantee without those staffing numbers. We may not have a choice. When we make that decision, we are doing so without the full picture of the costs, full stop. So when we have to have those tough conversations, if the library hours are cut, or if staff are being let go, or libraries are closed altogether, if we don't have the stomach for that, and who would, we have to explain why we're going to have to raise taxes because we did not plan ahead at this time for the ongoing cost. Let's remember this discussion today, whose money we decided to spend without all of the information, and we have a chance to make that right tonight and change those future conversations by approving this motion to show that we respect the taxpayer and we believe in making informed decisions with their money. Thank you very much.
Point of privilege, Mayor Caniff. For the speaker to suggest that libraries could be closed after we as council have heard staff confirm that, it calls on the question of integrity of council and how I'm going to make a future decision. I would like to reassure my constituents that I have heard and seen that local libraries and rural committees are not going to be impacted from this. Our CFO has said this. And so for the mover to suggest that that is not true does impugn in some way the integrity of council. So I'm just calling the point of privilege.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do I have an opportunity to respond to that, Mr. Chair?
No, your 5 minutes is up.
Okay.
So we're going to put that up. So we're now voting on deferring, to be very clear, to defer the bid and push it off and have and wait. So we're voting on Councillor Story's motion.
All votes are in. Motion fails 4-14.
Okay, we'll proceed on then with the motion. So we've had Councillor Crew and Councillor B. McGregor and Councillor Bondi. I understand you were looking for some amendments?
Yes, Mayor Caniff, I would like to make an amendment to the recommendations if I could. I haven't submitted it, so I'll just read it slowly, right?
You can try. We'll see how fast Meredith's fingers are, but we might have to repeat it. Or you could hand it to me after and I can bring it up.
Sure. Why don't we, I'll read it, then I'll just hand it off to you. That the CCDC2 contract include a clause where Fortis agrees that with the exception of costs due to an increase in tariffs, under no circumstances shall Fortis be paid more than $47,344,918.53, including HST. Oh, I'm going to take out the including HST because I don't know if the contingency has an HST applied to it. So whatever, that doesn't really make a difference. But so yeah, that's it. So Mayor Caniff, if I can
Councillor Crew and Councillor B. McGregor, is that a friendly amendment?
No, Mayor Caniff, I don't think I want to include that on any of this amendment because it's very well worded and thought out, and we don't need to.
Okay, so that won't be included in this.
Okay, sure.
Sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. It's okay.
Ms. Crawford, could you provide some advice as well, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Crawford, Director of Legal Services. So just wanted to speak to this proposed amendment. So the way that this RFP works, and all of RFPs work, is that the CCD terms, the specifications that staff have sent with the benefit of the expert advice they received from external counsel, who specialized legal counsel in the area of construction procurement and construction law, as well as the architectural team that Ms. Mascaro referenced. Those terms are baked into the RFP, and then we solicit on behalf of the corporation proposals in response. So the pricing that has been presented, the proposal that is before you today is premised on terms and conditions that have in effect already crystallized. So we're not in a position at this point to now sort of retroactively go back to the bidder based on the proposal in front of you and negotiate new terms consistent with every RFP that we bring to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bond, did you have anything else?
No, I think that was the knockout punch, so that's, I get it.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Just point of order for clarity, we're calling the question on the motion that's in front of us, not Councillor Bondi's amendment.
What's in the report?
Sorry, Councillor Anderson, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. And through you. I just want to close with a couple of comments. And I think that one of the misconceptions that has been brought forward with this is that you think that if we move forward with something like this, that it means that we aren't going to put as much into affordable housing or homelessness or public health or something else. And it's not in spite of. And I'll leave you with this. A forest would never survive with only one type of tree in it. It takes coniferous trees, deciduous trees, ground coverage, and brush, nutrient, root rich, and weak, in order to supply a healthy forest. And that's what we are looking for here, and that is what we are working forward to in this municipality. It is to have an all-encompassing, strong municipal assets and be able to support our residents properly. And we have to do that with all of the above. We can't just cater to certain things. We have to cater to all things, and this is the way that we get things done. Thank you.
Okay, votes in?
No.
Okay, we'll put the vote in. Oh, sorry, actually, sorry, the seconder and the mover, if there's any final words.
I've said a lot in 2 years about this. I'm happy it's coming to an end. I appreciate Councillor Harrigan calling a point of privilege. I've been around the table for, 10 or 11 years, budget chair for a while. I've never seen a staff recommendation come to close a rural library. I've never seen, of all my council colleagues, anyone bring that recommendation forward. I've seen it once in a 2025 budget report from a recommendation from one councillor to the mayor to consider in the budget. That is the only time I've ever seen it. So like Councillor Harrigan, I feel for my rural colleagues, I feel for my Ward 6 colleagues, that there's any insinuation that that is something that we're not committed to rural libraries. We are, and I want that to be clear at the end of tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. As well, I'm glad this is coming to an end. For end of the discussion, but the beginning of the vision for our healthy forest. That's a really good analogy. I thank everyone for their deputations. Couple comments that came out that stuck to me, that we're together for the future and investing in our people. And that's what this is. This is investing in our people, our community, and I hear a lot of excitement for the project and excitement for our community. And a couple people who are usually pretty conservative said to me, I just want to see something I can physically go to for my taxes. I understand I got to pay taxes, but I want something. And every time something big comes to us, it gets pushed away. So I'm happy to see that we are investing in our downtown, all of our downtowns. They're all important, but it's difficult when you have a community that's so spread out, like Chatham-Kent, to keep that in mind, that we are all one and we are one forest. I really like that. That's really good. But I just want to thank everyone, from the investors to council to staff, for all of the information, the overabundance of information that sometimes I feel like, oh, that's just the same question worded differently because someone else has asked a question. And that's fine. We have the information. It's there for the constituents, and I look forward to this ending 2 years of mega reports. Thank you, and I look forward to, hopefully everyone sees this as a positive thing in our community.
With that, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 14-4. We'll now move on to 15C, Building and Land Acquisition, 92 Churchill Street, Chatham.
Councillor Juvenile and Councillor Doyle, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
I so move.
I so second.
Councillor Juvenile, you had a question, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Is he even here? Oh, he's not here. I don't really have a specific question. I actually wanted it voted on separately. I guess this one's on Churchill. So it's going to remain, the use, actually, will you come and just describe what it's going to remain as, or what the proposed use will be if we buy it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ray Harper, Director of Municipal Housing and Property Development. So the existing school that's on the property will be used to continue the already provided childcare service. And any other new proposed redevelopments of the property, administration would bring relative reports to council for future decision-making.
Okay, so right now it's staying as existing use, and it wouldn't, there would be no other usage unless it was brought to council. It would, is that right? Am I understanding that right?
Thank you, Councillor. That is correct.
Okay. Okay, I'm just struggling with spending all this money. I know we need these things, but we have so many assets, and I'm really struggling with all of the spending that we're doing. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your report. Good reports. You always do great reports. Thank you.
Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I had the similar question, just to make sure it was going to stay as a daycare, kind of long-term, and that wouldn't be changing at any time. And then as well, the other, like the land on that area that we are potentially going to develop into affordable housing, I just wanted to confirm that we wouldn't even be suggesting to think about supportive housing there, correct? If there's a daycare on that property, it would strictly be affordable.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Right now, we're just looking at, like the report says, affordable housing options for redevelopment and perhaps any recreation use as well. So administration needs to take time to review potential options for the property. But certainly we view at this point in time, it would be a great place for family affordable, both mixed and attainable market development.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Councillor Bondi?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I'm not going to support this, and the reason is not that it's what it is, but we just bought Meadow Park, we just bought St. Agnes. We haven't done anything with either one of them. So I just feel like we're getting quite the inventory of property. We have this shovel-ready land available, and I know it's affordable housing now, but I think St. Agnes started as affordable housing, then the language switched to supportive housing. So that can just change. Like, that's not in our purview. So what I don't like about this is these are single-dwelling neighborhoods, quiet neighborhoods, and tomorrow morning, whether, you know, this doesn't sound nice, but those property values go down. If we put in affordable housing in these quiet single-family dwelling neighborhoods, these people lose property value. That's a fact, and, you know, that can't be argued. So to do this when it could be years as we wait for provincial funding. Well, we've been waiting for provincial funding for an awful long time. And again, we just bought a nursing home, Meadow Park. We just bought St. Agnes. Now we're buying more property. We're not doing anything with them. And, we're having a pretty expensive night here. So I think we should just hold off and let a developer buy it and build some houses on it and leave it to the private market to take care of this stuff. Like, we're gobbling up everything that seems to come around that's sizable. Let the market take it, and they'll buy it. Somebody will buy it. It's a nice neighborhood, and somebody would put in appropriate housing. So I won't support it. Thanks.
Councillor B. McGregor?
Thank you. Happy to see the report come forward. I did have some questions. We had some emails from the community, and I know we've seen a number of these before, but if this property was not municipally owned or not in municipal control, and a private developer bought it, based on the current zoning, what are their options to do with this property? Oh, yeah, I was maybe asking Bruce, but he's gone.
Maybe I can address that. So we know right now that I don't know the details to the answer, but we know right now the land is used institutionally.
Yep.
So obviously it can continue to be used for institutionally. I suspect that it also has residential uses on it just because of the nature of the neighborhood. But as we know, while council can ultimately decide what they'd like the property to be zoned, the decision in terms of final use is in the hands of the province if the developer appeals. So there was a comment made that we won't know if it's affordable or supportive. Certainly if we own the land and council does not want it to be supportive housing, that's your call. If we don't own the land, then you have less control over the final use than if you do own the land.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point when we've discussed these in the past, and we've gone through that list of what those institutional uses may permit a private developer to do. That list includes a lot of uses that I don't think neighborhoods would be very appreciative of, and they would have no recourse to have any input into that process. So when a private developer owns it, they don't have a say. When we own it, there is a process for say. So I think that's important when we think of that control. And I can think of examples in the past when private entities bought these schools on speculation in some communities, and you end up with a boarded school that's vandalized and has activity that is not good for communities. So when we have an opportunity to make sure there's still sustained use on it, and likely future use that meets community needs, that makes sense to me. Thank you.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ray, for this report. I know you and your team are really working hard to continue to address this growing issue of affordable housing and homelessness in our community. I have to admit, this has been an issue that I have, been thinking about this whole term like the rest of us. I admit that right now I am moving towards a little more discomfort with adding more assets before we start working on the current assets we have. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't go ahead with this, and I will support it, but I admit that right now I'm wondering where the threshold is of how many buildings we are going to buy before we maybe park the purchasing piece and use those funds to start transforming the properties we already have into the housing that we need. So do you have a sense right now, and I apologize, we did not discuss this at a time, it was a bit of a busy night, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but would it be possible for you to give us some feedback on, is there a threshold where we would stop purchasing properties and start developing those into the housing that we need at this point? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the question, Councillor. I'd like to also address a few points on some of the other properties. So we actually are doing work on some of the other properties. So the Meadow Park property, we don't get possession to that property until next year. There are people living in that building. So at this point in time, we can't redevelop the property until we get actual possession of Meadow Park. Right now, administration is finalizing the draft for the detailed design to release that in order for us to do a full redevelopment of that property. So work is being worked on that. In addition, same with our Park Street property, as identified in the previous reports to councils that are also linked in these reports, of our updates on what administration is working on to redevelop property for affordable housing. And the St. Agnes property was recently demoed. And then we're releasing a request for expression of interest that is open to private and nonprofits to provide submissions on redevelopment options. And then administration will be able to bring options for council's consideration. And then to answer your questions with Is there a limit on how many properties to buy? I guess I would point out a few things. We don't see anyone coming to the table to solve the housing crisis right now for especially affordable housing. We're not seeing private developers come to the table and develop affordable housing for free. So we've also seen an explosive growth in the wait list, with like 34% growth of people in need of affordable housing just last year alone. And council has received a housing needs assessment that identifies the housing needs in all the communities of Chatham-Kent. And we're doing our best from administrative, both to address those needs from our standpoint from the municipality, as well as encourage our nonprofit and private developers to hopefully address those needs as well.
Thanks, Ray. I think that's an important point, because I think if there were other partners willing to build and develop affordable housing, we would be thrilled to have them do that. But right now we aren't seeing that, so we're being put in a position where we're buying them themselves. So I'm just thinking about, okay, what other buildings would we be purchasing at this point? If for whatever reason we can't secure an option that we would like at that former John and Given site, would we ever consider reselling it? Would that be an option? Or are we, we are right now, we're going to do something with that property no matter what? Thank you.
So right now, administration is committed to bringing some options for council to consider before any decisions are made to further that process. Certainly, council, if the council directed to administration to sell the property, that would up to council's discretion.
But if I can, I think the province's rules in terms of school properties have changed a lot over the last 24 months. So, but I think that if we do acquire this one, the uses that we would be able to use it for are limited to sort of municipal housing uses or recreational uses. So while we could sell it, I think the uses would be limited. So that could impact the sale price at some point. So the hope is that we'd be able to use it for municipal use. So.
Can I clarify that with you, Michael? So even if we sell it, the conditions are attached to the property, not the purchaser or the seller, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at Dave. I don't know if the conditions are attached, but I know that for us to be able to acquire it from the school board right now, we had to demonstrate that we had plans to use it for housing or recreational use. I'm looking at Mr. Taylor. I don't know if you know, are we then bound to limit the use if we do flip it?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think that's a good summary, Michael. We made essentially representations that we have intended municipal uses for it, but I don't believe down the path that would prevent council from ultimately determining that, say, it wasn't a viable site for some reason, then selling it at that point.
Thank you. And just one last question. There's been, a lot of talk about asset management plans tonight, which is certainly an important topic. When we're adding these new facilities to our roster, is that part of the long-term asset management piece? Is that discussion happening along with the planning of the build? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. So we haven't formalized a completed full use for the property as well as the building. We're assessing the remainder of the building as well as the property of what those redevelopment options are. Perhaps maybe it is to demo part of the school and only leave part of the school for childcare. Those decisions haven't been made yet, or recommendations that have come forward yet. And then any kind of redevelopment options that would be a permanent nature would certainly involve an asset management strategy.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 16-2. D, Building and Land Acquisition, Park Street, Chatham Properties.
Councillor Jubenville and Councillor Crew, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
I so move.
Second?
Councillor Jubenville, you had a question?
Nothing specific, just, I just wanted it voted on separately. And I know it was in the report, but just to a high-level idea of where, what the usage, again, what you are thinking the usage would end up being on, with these properties?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. So this ties back into the previous reports to councils and administration's development options for the adjacent property. Both two separate projects at this point that's been proposed, both of a supportive housing project as well as a affordable and mixed market building as a separate project. So these properties would be incorporated in that development plan to make sure that, because right now we have a concept design, but to do a full detailed design to ensure we have, you know, effective stormwater management plan, parking, proper fire exits and entrances to the property. So these three properties would be incorporated in that overall arching development process.
And is there also an option of perhaps extending the transitional cabins? Would that be a potential usage for it as well?
That could be a potential uses if the council had directed administration to do so. But the advantage of this property, these three properties, at least opens up our redevelopment options, and at this point in time, certainly strengthens the original intentions of the redevelopments that we brought forward to council, and council approved direction to proceed with those design phases.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Scotchy?
Thank you. Just through to Mr. Harper, I did receive a couple questions through conversation that I thought it was important to address. So it does look like off the kind of just by a very bird's eye view that we're actually removing some affordable housing through from the inventory. Can you just speak on, like, essentially just a really brief update on like what our goals are? And we're not actually removing affordable housing from the community. We're actually looking to grow by doing these acquisitions to further our inventory. And so if we're taking away 4 houses or 3 houses or 2, we're actually getting more units. And if you can just really quickly touch on that, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Yes, so 2 of the properties right now are Chatham Hope properties, and they're one of our nonprofit housing providers. So the 3rd property is privately owned, and the property owners live in the house. So those two houses, yes, are currently in an operating agreement that provide social housing to her. But this is 2 houses with that property. The net gain would be significant. I don't have the exact number of units, but certainly these 2 properties would help ensure that we're providing more units to the community.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that the community knew we weren't taking some out of the inventory. This is to exponentially grow our inventory. That's all. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 15E, motion by Councillor Brock McGregor regarding cemetery bylaw exemption and review.
Councillor B. McGregor?
Thank you. Whereas the municipality has passed bylaw 382016 on March 21st, 2016, under the Act to regulate the operation of municipal cemeteries in the municipality of Chatham-Kent, and whereas the bylaw sets standards for the installation of monuments, markers, and memorials in municipal cemeteries to ensure that parameters of material, size, style, and content are adhered by the interment rights holders, and whereas to date the municipality has not permitted exemptions to the current standards, therefore staff be directed to update conformance requirements to reflect new trends in community interest in headstone design and develop a process to evaluate exception requests in an updated bylaw during their current bylaw review. And prior to this review being complete, staff be directed to permit the installation of a non-conforming monument in Dresden Cemetery by Lance Babcock and the Griffith family non-conforming request at Maple Leaf Cemetery.
Councillor Juvenile, you second that?
Yes, I'll second it. And can we just add the word family after Griffith? So it'll say the Griffith family.
Oh, yeah. I read it, but didn't put it on.
It's okay.
Councillor B. McGregor?
Yep, so it's a pretty simple request, something that staff have been working on for a little while to try and figure out an exemption for a resident. There is a process that's going to be underway in some bylaw review. It's taking some time, so just providing some direction to components of that bylaw review. Fortunately, Councillor Jumonville was notified that there was another request in a similar situation. We added them together. showing, some Chatham-Kent unity. The request that I made was in Dresden Cemetery. The request that Councilor Drumel made is in Chatham Cemetery. So pretty simple to move this forward, alleviate a little red tape for a couple families, and provide some direction for a bylaw review. Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Just, if I can remember reading correctly, staff didn't really recommend approving this motion, just because it kind of then changes things, and now we're looking at if somebody else wants to have a non-conforming one, we kind of have to do that more often if we're now giving some exemptions. Can I just have somebody on staff speak to that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rob Pollock, Director for Parks, Recreation, and Cemeteries. I also have Colin Marling here. He's the Supervisor for Cemeteries. He's has about over 11 years experience as a Supervisor of Cemeteries, so we brought him along in case there's any specific questions. But in relation to the motion on the floor right now, our cemeteries operations, and Colin can speak to this more too, is we go by the bylaw for consistency and fairness for everyone using our municipal cemeteries to ensure we're not giving any preferential treatment to anyone else. And within the bylaw, it states that the manager within the area or designate will have final say on the bylaw. But that doesn't mean giving exceptions to the bylaw. It just states that they'll uphold the bylaw and any regulations that's directed by the BAO and other governing agencies. So we provide consistent decisions to try to make sure we have fair treatment for everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, so that to me, doing something like this kind of opens it up for anybody else who wants to have a non-conforming thing down the road, which is going to make it a lot harder for staff going forward and to have everything look identical, or not identical, but fit within parameters.
But maybe I can address that. So I think the point is that we follow the bylaw pretty closely, but we recognize that there probably needs to be an update to the bylaw. It's going to take a little while to do that. So we didn't recommend the changes when the request came in because it was contrary to the strict wording of the bylaw. But if this is something council wants to do, I mean, you have the authority to do this here. I think the intent would be we would, with this direction, we would approve these two, and then we'd work on a bylaw. I assume that that bylaw would probably also recognize that some of the components of these two applications will now be allowed, or some parameters of it. I think one of them was granite or something like that, like a different type of material. We'd have to work through the bylaws. Look, it's your decision, it's your bylaw, so if you grant the exemption, then staff will follow suit. But I think the point is it's time that we make some changes to the bylaw, and maybe I can ask Rob a question. Do you think that ultimately a change to the bylaws, I know you have to do some consultation and everything, but do you think that these two would likely be approved because they don't interfere with operations?
That's an excellent question. I'm actually going to pass it over to Colin to talk a little bit more about materials. He deals with all the day-to-day stuff and all the operations. So Colin, if you want to answer this one, just regarding the update on the bylaw and the materials. So.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yeah, we are planning a bylaw update. This has been in the works through the summer, and it's a project that we hope to undertake through the winter time and come back to you next year with some new bylaws to perhaps review. As far as bylaw updates, they tend to take a couple of things into consideration. The cemetery and the property on the cemetery ultimately is the responsibility of the municipality to care for. We have a great deal of maintenance that we have to look after. We have to maintain access to ensure that we can carry out burials from day to day. And a lot of the recommendations that come out of bylaws are gained through past experiences. So that tends to look at why are things such as wooden crosses not permitted in municipal cemeteries. They don't last, and they become a maintenance issue. Particularly in our older cemeteries, the largest maintenance issue that we deal with are broken marble monuments. And even just a simple task like cutting the grass can cause harm to monuments, and that's not nice for anybody. So materials that are recommended specifically knowing that not if something bad is going to happen, but when something bad happens, is the material durable and will it sustain what we consider to be day-to-day activity. So that'll be things that are considered in the bylaw update.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. If it's, yeah, for me, this is a tough one. I can understand where the families are coming from. Do we know the Griffith family, what their non-conforming request is? Like, we have one for Lance, it's in the report, but the Griffith family, what are they asking for different?
Sure. There are, I mean, we operate 6 active cemeteries in the municipality, and at the time of amalgamation, we were nuanced with 6 different sets of bylaws and 6 different sets of activities, particularly with how lots were sold in those various cemeteries. We've tried to, over the last 30 years, bring everybody into a single unit bylaw, but there are nuances. In the city of Chatham, depending on where you purchased your lots, you were given the option of a single grave, a 2-grave lot, a 4-grave lot, or an 8-grave lot. The owner of that lot specifically would choose the configuration of the lot that they wanted to use or wanted to purchase, knowing full well that there were certain terms and conditions. So a 2-grave lot allows you to put a single monument up on a 2-grave lot. Same as a 4-grave lot. A 4-grave lot would have a single monument with 2 graves on either side of it. In an 8-grave lot, a family was given the right to purchase a much larger monument than a person buying a single or a double lot, and that was an advantage. They viewed that as an advantage, so they would purchase an 8-grave lot, and that came with that condition. Now, fast forward, several decades, and you get subsequent generations who want to use a lot that they didn't necessarily purchase, and it becomes a situation where I really want to use this lot, but I'm not really in favor of the conditions that the purchaser agreed to. Unfortunately, we have to respect what the purchaser's original intent was as the interment rights holder. So we run into these situations, not just in the city of Chatham, but also in Wallaceburg, Dresden particularly, and Bothwell, especially Bothwell, where they had very certain conditions attached to how many monuments you could put up on a cemetery plot. And getting back to the Griffith family, they were in that situation where they had a lot that the owner specifically purchased 2 lots side by side, and each lot allowed them to put up a larger estate monument, which the owner did on his first lot. The second lot, the family's trying to access now, and aren't necessarily in favor of the terms that the owner had agreed to. And they would like to put multiple lots on the 8-grave, or multiple monuments on an 8-grave lot. That wasn't sold and intended to be in an area that is surrounded by 8-grave lots. So it's a difficult argument to make with a family who's already respected the rules that are surrounding them.
Thank you very much for that answer. I guess just one follow-up question. Would you feel comfortable us passing this one, or would you feel more comfortable waiting 6-8 months till you come up with the bylaw and us passing that at that point?
So if this passes, we will go back to these 2 families and work with them through probably some sort of legal agreement to make sure that we're all on the same page, that these are exceptions to the bylaw that council approved. We gave a response to the motion, and the bylaw that was passed by council, we can't make exceptions to. So our answer to the motion was we wouldn't allow the exception. And we get plenty of requests every year for exceptions on varying different things within the bylaw. And we try to make sure we apply those consistently to make sure we're doing it fairly. But if council directs us to do that, we'll be working with those families on these 2 situations.
Okay, thank you. My worry is just if you have that many requests every year, we approve these 2, and now we have requests every meeting. So I'd rather wait. I understand where the families are coming from, but I'd rather wait for a bylaw so we don't have these every meeting. Thanks.
Councillor Story?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I agree with Councillor Doyle. I think when I read about this, you've mentioned operational concerns, safety risk, aesthetic issues, increased risks of damages during maintenance from mowers and trimmers while creating stability risk, as oversized monuments are more prone to collapsing over time or falling that could result in injury of an employee, contractor, or member of the public. Burial access. The rules are equitably applied at all times to ensure that nobody perceives another as receiving preferential treatment. So obviously anything around where your loved one's last resting places is extremely sensitive, and I completely appreciate that, and I understand why the Babcock and Griffith families would want to perhaps personalize a space that is so meaningful to them. What I'm reading in your report back to the motion is that there are safety risks and liability and vandalism risks as it stands right now with the bylaw. So I would feel more comfortable waiting until that bylaw was complete. Then you have a process in place to review each exception in an equitable fashion. So I appreciate the response tonight, and I will not be supporting it. And I will look forward to supporting it in the future if we have that equitable process in place that everyone is aware of, and all that will be basically approached equitably towards all users. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go, seeing no other questions, I'll go to Councillor Juneville, then back to Councillor Bean McGregor for final comments.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Sorry, I don't know if you said this, but when do you anticipate the bylaw to be revised and come back to council?
So we're already looking at starting the process. In the response back, I said by the end of 2026. After talking to Colin a little bit more, it's probably a bit earlier than that. But to give a definite answer, it's kind of difficult right now until we're kind of going through that process. And I can update council closer to when we know that, but it would be in 2026 at some point.
Okay. And if this passed, I know you have to abide by the bylaw. I understand what you're saying. Council has the authority to pass this, and then you would have to respect council's wishes, obviously. If it passes, do you see a potential, specifically, do you see a potential issue, other than the fact that it's not in compliance with the existing bylaw? Do you see any specific issues with either of these two scenarios?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other than that it's not in compliance with the bylaw?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. When talking about the one with the Babcock family, Colin kind of mentioned it. There is risks. It's not as durable as material, so there's more prone to breaking just over time through, we go through the winter season, summer season. It's an active cemetery too, so, we have mowers going around, we have other equipment going around, and also the members of the public can go there too. So could it break? It is, through our experience, there's been a higher likelihood of those materials breaking. And then the other one for that one would be, there is some other materials in there that could be seen as, someone that would want to go and steal them or something else. There is a higher risk of that, but probably limited with just one exception. And then relating to the other one, operation, I'll let Colin speak to a little bit about that one.
Okay.
About the Griffith family.
Thank you. I think my main concern with the second request would simply be that the other families that have similar lots throughout the cemetery under the same terms, who have approached us in the past and asked for similar exemptions, and we've upheld council's bylaw. So that would be a concern from the cemetery team in that, we just never want to put it out there that there might be some favoritism, or maybe that there's two sets of rules happening in our cemeteries.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Bean McGregor, final thoughts.
Sure, appreciate the long conversation on this one. This was born out of a pretty simple request, and one of the residents approached staff about this. The staff response was eventually, we can't go against the current bylaw. If you'd like to get this installed, you've got to ask council to change the bylaw. That's how it came to me, so that's why I made the request. I think, both requests are reasonable, and hearing Mr. Pollack mention that they'd be willing to work with the families from a legal perspective. If a family is willing to accept a little risk on a monument they've purchased that might crack sooner than another material. I think that's a pretty reasonable risk for them to assume themselves. And my motivation for the motion was that understanding there's a bylaw review going to happen, I think it's important that we provide a little input into that bylaw review. So saying, hey, we understand you're getting a lot of exemption requests. Let's make sure in that bylaw process there is a process for exemption requests. I think that's really important. Now individuals will know that they can come forward with those requests when the bylaw is updated. Obviously, there's some people that have some interest in having this implemented before that process is done, and I think this is a way to allow that to happen. I do remember my former West Kent colleague, Mr. Brian Fluker, saying sometimes as government we just get in our own way. This is a reasonable request. We're trying to facilitate cutting a little red tape to allow some families to express their desire to mark an area for their loved ones, and then to initiate a process that the whole community can benefit from. So appreciate that this took a little while to discuss, appreciate the feedback, and hoping for your support for this one. Thank you.
With that, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 15-3.
Item 17, Chief Administrative Office.
17A, Together CK Core Grant Funding Recommendations.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I saw that the recommendation for here was to change the core grant to be approved as only a 2-year. And while I read the rationale and I did have a chance to speak with Audrey today, I do think that it does have a pretty detrimental effect on the organizations that have been approved for this grant. I would like to amend it for it to go back to the 4-year approval. And if I can get a seconder for that, we can have further discussion as to why.
Councillor Finn.
Thank you. I could appreciate if when the application for this grant went out, that it would have been stated that it could have been moved to a 2-year, that they were only approving for a 2-year period. But there was 41 organizations that applied for this, 18 were granted it, and I understand it is probably underfunded and it does need to be looked at, and I certainly understand the rationale for that. But these people applied for it thinking that they were getting a 4-year funding, and I worry about the effects that it would have on those that have been approved to only receive a 2-year and then have to reapply and maybe not getting it when they are making future plans for a 4-year grant funding model.
Councillor Finn.
I couldn't have said it any better.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote. As amended.
The amended one is up on the screen. It's just the 2 recommendations versus the 4 that were in the report. All votes are in, and motion passes 16-0 as we had 2 conflicts. And 17B, Together CK Annual Grant Guidelines Update.
Councillor Anderson and Councillor C. McGregor, can I get you on the floor, please?
I am happy to move it.
Happy to second.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you. And my questions were more for Audrey and Victoria. We did have some comments about this, but the issue that I have mostly is with the fundraising portion of it, and I would like to see a possible amendment to that. While I understand you can't fundraise for the cost of the event, I feel like if it's an organization that has a donation bin or a bingo or a something to raise money for a future use, that should be allowed. And if you could just clarify for me if that is within the grant application process or if it's no fundraising whatsoever.
Through you, Mayor Caniff. So I suppose in practice it is actually the opposite. So currently in the grant guidelines, fundraising is not allowed. though it is encouraged ahead of time in order to meet the 50% contribution that applicants are required to make. So what's not allowed is the events to be funded, to be fundraising in and of themselves for a third-party purpose. And what was put forward was clarifying those guidelines. So there is language in the guidelines as they exist, kind of spotting throughout around ineligibility. Fundraising in and of itself at the event for the purpose is ineligible. And some of the language we've added is just to clarify that.
But they are able to fundraise for something else.
They are not. So in the guidelines, what Together CK is intended to support is an event or an activity or a project itself. What it is not intended currently to support is fundraising activities, third-party fundraising organizations. What you can do is, because organizations have to supply 50% of the whole budget in order to qualify, you can use previously fundraised dollars towards your 50%, and we ask you to stipulate that in your budget of where that's coming from. You can use sponsored dollars to go towards your event, and we ask you to put that in your application. So what is in the current guideline recommendations in front of you is to help finesse some of that language, because it was confusing. What we saw from applicants was some confusion around that in the past. And what we heard from the Together CK committee, who have been on the committee this current iteration for the last few years, is that they have seen confusion from applicants on that guideline. So we are trying to refine the language to say that fundraising is not recommended as being part of the Together CK portfolio.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate that. I just think that it would then, I mean, the municipality is only funding half of the event, so they are already putting their own money into this. So I feel like there should be a certain amount of allowance for fundraising, because the purpose of a lot of these events is to promote something or to gain something, and I feel like it's kind of like tying them down as to not being able to expand, whether it's their programs or their future planning or their future missions or what they want to do as far as community involvement. So I do struggle with that, and I think that there could be proper language to allow modest fundraising for future plans, so long as it's not related to that specific event that is going to affect what that grant money has been used for. But if it's for future planning, for them to have a 50-50 or a donation jar or whatever, I think that by not allowing that, you're kind of deterring people from even applying for the grant in the first place, when really they're not even going to be able to offset future plans for their organization. So I do struggle with this, and for that reason, I don't know if we need to refer this back to do more like deep dive and look into, maybe there is a way that we can have stipulations on the types of fundraising that can be done. But I do struggle with them not being able to make money at an event because the event was half funded by the municipality.
So, do you want to answer this?
Through the Mayor, Councillor Anderson, just to note on this one, in terms of any deferral on this piece, I think out of respect to the fact that we had a committee engaged and actually coming up with these new criteria, we would like to go back to them. So any delay in this pushes out the application period, which therefore potentially impacts events in 2026. So depending on our time.
Yeah, so I guess what I would propose would be to approve the applications that have gone forward this year as is with previous language.
So this
and
one is.
And then refer back to the committee for next year. Would that be reasonable? Sorry.
Yes, it would. Obviously, we will put out the call for applications now in the next, well, tomorrow if this is approved this evening. But then that would be a 2027 when that fundraising piece would come into effect. Right, we would put out in 2026 call. This is an annual grant, so the annual call goes out around about this time of year.
So the applications have already gone through for this year?
No.
You're proposing?
Yes, sorry, this year's have gone out, but we're putting out a call now for next year.
I'm not comfortable with changing anything for this year. Those applications have already gone through for this year's planning, with the understanding that they have certain things that they can do when they apply for this, should the grant be approved to them. So I would defer any changes in this to next year and refer it back to the committee to review some of that language and refine it and put different stipulations in for fundraiser events.
Just to be sure we're clear, so the recommendation is for this annual grant to come forward for 2026 funding. It currently does not allow fundraising. So we would keep those grant guidelines the same for next year's funding, not for anyone who has previously been approved. No one has been applied yet for this funding that's in front of us. We're opening an intake for funding in hopefully next week if things are fine with council. And then that funding will be for 2026 annual grant, one-time funding. The previous report was for 4-year funding for core grant funding. So there's 2 streams of Together CK funding reports that are in front of council tonight.
Okay. And okay. So are we able to, would we then approve this now and then maybe amend it later with a notice of motion? Is that how we could do it, or refer it back to relook at it?
Madam Clerk, I'll refer to you on that one.
So yeah, it just depends on the timing, because if they post it now, but if you approve something now and change it later, it would require reconsideration.
Mr. Mayor, Dave Taylor, Deputy CEO, if I could just make a suggestion. If I understand, Councillor Anderson, what you're thinking about, so as Ms. Bodnar indicated, these would be the policy guidelines for the 2026 funding, right, that we need to release. But you'd be asking, essentially, we could either add it here, or we could work on motion language for you to come back, would be for administration to consider amendments for the 2027 and beyond program guidelines that would provide options to council that may expand the ability to use fundraising. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
So I don't think there's any timing for
No, I
that
appreciate that.
need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
happen, tonight,
I
and
think
we could
that's
just work on a
reasonable,
notice
for
motion.
sure. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to put a note out there that I've been part of this program for a long time, and the big issue is fundraisers, and that's what we're talking about here. But all of a sudden, if you allow fundraisers, there's hundreds of more events, hundreds. And the events that get it now would be completely diluted. So there's that fine balance, because it's meant to be free to the public. That's the thing they look at and saying, do the municipality subsidizing something that's free? All of a sudden, if you say, well, we're raising money for this or that, I mean, I'm pointing that out for next year's for consideration, but that's what we'll be looking at. Now, when you mentioned something about a donation jar, I'm thinking, okay, that I can still go to that event free, and the donation jar can help offset the cost of the event. And that's what we're trying to do, is provide free events, but the people that organize them with that. But that's why there's not a fundraiser to say, I'm raising money for cancer. Well, it's a great event, but we can't subsidize that because we're effectively donating money to cancer. I know it's next year, but I just put that caution out there.
For sure, and through you, I appreciate that. I guess my follow-up question would be, like, how saturated are these applications?
So last year we received overall over 70 applications, and we approved over 60 applications. In the community event stream, there were over 35 applicants that received funding. I don't believe I'd have to look at it again. Not very many got 100% funding.
So was it because they were ineligible, or because we didn't have the proper funding amount, like the proper amount?
We have a limited funding pool. We always are oversubscribed for funding requests.
Okay.
And community events are a big portion of the funding that is allocated.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay, with that, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Closed session reports.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Confidentiality in closed session meetings. Closed session meetings of council are held to discuss sensitive matters such as legal issues, personnel matters, or property negotiations. These sessions are governed by strict confidentiality to protect the interests of the municipality and individuals involved. Council members and staff are legally and ethically bound to maintain discretion, and any disclosure of information discussed in closed session may result in penalties or legal consequences. Closed session report for Monday, October 20th, 2025. Council received information on labor relations or employee negotiations about union contract bargaining updates, Section 239 2D of the Municipal Act. And Mayor Canada, if I so move.
Councillor C. McGregor, can I second that, please?
Yes.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 18-0.
Communication items, Councillor McGrail and Councillor Wright, can I just move them, please?
I will so move.
I will second.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Non-agenda business. Councillor Sakatchi.
Just quickly, Mayor Caniff, I just wanted to recognize Mr. Pollock's team as well as Chief Case's Part-Time Fire Association. Due to some power challenges in Blenheim this weekend, we had a small fire at the Blenheim Arena as well as a challenge at the pool, and his team as well as Chief Case's team did a wonderful job being on site. And I just wanted to leave one quick task with you, Mayor Caniff, if you minded, just to see if it was potential for you to set up a meeting with Integris to see if you can touch base with them to see if we can rectify these ongoing challenges, because it is putting our municipal assets as well as our community at risk. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Crew.
I just want to say congratulations to Mrs. Schatz, our clerk. Judy Smith got married a couple weeks ago, and if you were like me, I thought it was IT playing a trick on me. I was like, no, you're not getting me. And I picked up the phone and called her. So I was like, IT's playing a trick. But no, when I called her, she told me that she got married. So congratulations from all of us, Judy.
We'll go to the first reading. Councillor Juvenile and Councillor Finn. Can I get you to move that, please?
I so move.
So seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Third and final reading, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Anderson.
Moved.
Seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Resolution of council in closed session, Councillor Hall, and then Councillor Harrigan. Can I get you to wrap it up, Margaret, please?
I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, November 3rd, 2025, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
And so seconded.
Anyone opposed to wrapping it up at 9:38? Seeing none, have a great night.